All right. What's up, co-counsels? Hopefully you guys had a good day. So,
Hey there, Karen Reed trial watchers. You know what a lot of the trials we cover
okay.
remind
I've watched most of today's proceedings, but not everything. So I'm gonna try, and I missed a little over an hour. I missed over an hour, and that's because I had to attend a CLE at noon. So I'm gonna see if I can find the exact spot where I left off. I do have comments. I've written some, but not, I don't have extensive notes, but I did make a few notes for myself. As far as the cross examination, as far as the cross examination itself, it started off probably better than I had anticipated, and then it just got very chaotic. Like it ended how I thought it was going to start. So before we get to those comments, I just need to find the spot because I think it was I left off around noon, so it was sometime before the lunch show. Okay, so this would have been the lunch show. I'm gonna go back to 3:27. That should put me. I'd like to believe that's a good starting point.
Other than that, and Carrie, you had you talk. Well, let me ask you this. In point of fact,
Just go back a little bit.
10 minutes, and then they came in the door. During that part of time, you didn't talk to anybody else.
What's up,
and don't
Benji?
contact anybody else other than
What's up,
Matt
real
McCabe,
thing?
Carrie Roberts.
I hope you guys had a good day. And I'm just trying to catch up because I missed about an hour of today's proceedings. But I'll drop the link if anybody wants to come up. And Benji, as far as your comment last night, I believe last night you said that a few things were going over your head. Don't be shy about asking, okay? And I do ramble a lot. So if there's something you need clarification on, put it in the chat or ask. If I don't know the answer, I just don't know it. But usually there's somebody in the chat that would have, watched the trial and knows exactly what's going on.
Now you're testifying that was a true statement.
Hold on, wait. Is she caught in a lie?
Chance to talk to you.
But listen,
And you're
in the words of Real Thing, she definitely, Jen McCabe had a makeover. She had a real makeover. I don't know if she hired an image consultant, a media consultant. I don't know if her husband prepped her. I don't know if she hired her own attorney. She's definitely prepared. She was prepared today.
answer was no, correct?
Correct.
Let's go back.
And that was
I need to get the full context.
No.
I'm sure Mr. Brennan will have follow-up
Okay,
questions.
let's go. I missed all of that.
Staying with Ms. Roberts for just a second, about a timeline
Okay.
that you and Ms.
This
Roberts
is where I
put
left
together,
off.
correct?
Yes.
That's another example of the two of you talking about your own perceptions and comparing and contrasting those perceptions and putting it down on paper, correct?
No.
Yes or no?
It's a no. Can I explain or no?
I'm sure Mr. Brennan will have follow-up questions.
I'm sorry. I should not be laughing at this.
After you
But this was a reoccurring theme about Jan McCabe and Carrie Roberts lacking independent recollection or thought, and that they had to, or at least the defense wants the jurors to believe that they were in cahoots and pretty much concorded this whole thing up. So that's what defense is trying to bring out right now.
Gave that answer to those law enforcement officers at that separate law enforcement agency. They asked you, was there anyone else that you contacted in that 10-minute period before we got a chance to talk to you?
Mm-hmm.
And your answer was no, correct?
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
It wasn't a lie. No.
Was it true?
Listen, Jan McCabe came prepared. She was prepped. I don't know who prepped her, but I think it's pretty clear this go around that these witnesses are in fact prepared, as opposed to last year. It was clear. I don't know if Lolly did not have time, but the witnesses were not prepared. But Jan McCabe, she came out guns blazing.
Was it the truth or a lie?
It wasn't a lie.
Okay, so it was the truth. You had not spoken to any other person between the time they contacted you telephonically and you said, I need 10 minutes, and then they came in the door. During that part of time, you didn't talk to anybody else or contact anybody else other than Matt McCabe and Kerry Roberts. Now you're testifying that was a true statement.
I can't answer that yes or no.
It's pretty binary. Had you talked, well, let me ask you this. In point of fact, you did talk to other people. You contacted others in addition to Matt McCabe and Kerry Roberts, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So when you said no.
Now I'm actually watching this as opposed to just listening. I had not realized how often she'd look over in the jury's direction.
To the answer, did you contact anyone other than Matt and Kerry? That would be, by definition, Ms. McCabe, a lie. Correct?
No.
It's not a lie? Is there some shade of lie that I'm not aware of?
It's the way you're asking the question. If I could explain,
let me ask
it will make more sense to you.
The agents asked you, I'm going to go over this one more time, then I'm going to move on. The agents asked you, in fact, did you contact anyone between the time we called you and set up the interview and the 10 minutes before we walked in the door? They asked you that question, correct?
The objection sustained. Watch the choice of language.
I'm sorry. I meant the law enforcement agency. That law enforcement agency, the members of that law enforcement agency contacted you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. They asked you who you had contacted between the time they first telephoned you and walked in the door 10 minutes later. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Data point number one. Data point number two, you told them Matt and Kerry, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, she keeps looking over the jury.
You had actually contacted, they then asked you, did you contact anyone else other than Matt and Kerry, correct?
Correct.
And you said no. Is that correct?
At that moment, I said no. Yes.
Correct. At any moment.
No, at that moment, because they had just come in my house.
I asked you,
Only one person can talk at a time.
you said the word no,
She
correct?
was finishing her answer.
Dang.
I had said no because I'm going to be.
She's
I was in a
making
situation where there are two
look at that jury.
officers from a different agent had come in, were asking me questions, or they had said, can I come in and ask you questions? At first, I thought they were selling something. Then they identified themselves. I just dropped my kids off at school. Going to be completely honest. I hadn't brushed my teeth. So I kind of made some phone
Objection, Your Honor.
calls.
This is non-responsive.
So next question.
Thank you. Ms. McCabe, after you said no, that you hadn't contacted anybody else,
Mhm.
those two law enforcement officers from that separate agency who had told you it was a crime to lie to them, they left, correct?
Yes.
Subsequent to
Okay,
that,
so Real Thing says,
Miss-
Real Thing says she mentioned her witness advocate several times. Oh, okay. So she called her witness advocate in the DA's office when the FBI showed up to question her. All right, so I did not, that must be part of the testimony that I missed, but thank you for that. Okay, so I'll keep an ear out because Jan McCabe was definitely coached. All right, that's not even the right word. She was prepared. Somebody prepared her.
Mr. McCabe, your husband. Objection.
Sustained.
Hey, what's going on here? What's going on with Karen's mother?
Objection.
Sustained.
Is she laughing?
Mr. McCabe, your husband. Objection.
I don't
Sustained.
know, something's going on. I'm no body language expert, but something's going on.
they left you their card so you could call them if need be, correct?
Yes, they did.
And you, in fact, did call them back, correct?
Yes, I did.
Without telling me the content of the
He's looking at the
conversation
jury.
you had, did you have a conversation with Mr. McCabe?
Objection.
Sustained.
And Brennan is sharp.
Did you call them back and say, I'm calling you back because my husband told me
Objection.
that I lied to you and I better clear that lie up?
So
Dude,
sustained.
you know there's an objection. Why are you still going on?
Jurors, remember I told you before that only answers to questions are evidence? Be mindful of that.
May we
Next, yes.
Bev said yes. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Dang, how long were they gone for? This is, I think the Alan Jackson continuing to ask an objectionable question. It goes back to that, once a question is asked and the jurors have heard the question, you really cannot unring that bell. Even though the judge has instructed the jurors to disregard the question, the jurors pretty much know that Jan McCabe lied to the officers, and she, decided to correct her her statement because her husband because her husband asked or told her to. And again, even though it's objectionable, that is what Alan Jackson was trying to accomplish. He pretty much just wanted the jurors to hear that because, again, once it's out there, there's really no way of magically erasing what the jurors just heard. And I wondered, right? Because I was thinking, what are you apologizing for, real thing? I wondered today, I was giving Alan Jackson some thought. I was just thinking about his character overall. This man used to be a prosecutor, okay? I do not know that. I find it hard to believe that the way he's conducted himself in this case is the first time he's ever done that. That is, listen, that's not conduct you start engaging in your 50s or 60s unless you're having a midlife crisis. But I do have concerns, again, I do have concerns about his conduct just because he used to be a prosecutor. That kind of makes me want to take a closer look at his record. And I don't even know that it's going to exist because that was years ago. I don't know that, obviously, I don't think that the media or publications were as advanced as they currently are in terms of digital media. So probably I won't find anything. But I do have questions. I do have questions about the manner in which he carries himself. Something's going on with this.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. You ultimately called these officers back.
And I
correct?
mean, if we go back to the first trial, I just cannot remember. I cannot remember which witness was on the stand. But it's one of the, I want to say it's Proctor. It must have been Proctor. Because I remember it from one of the videos we watched together a few months or a few weeks back before this trial actually started. And who's this? Alan, my mind is fried today, you guys. I had a long day. So Alan Jackson had asked a question of the witness, which was objectionable. They had a sidebar. At sidebar, he told the judge that he'd be asking a different question. And when he got back to the podium, he asked the same objectionable question. And, the judge pretty much told him that is not what you said you're going to do. So we are seeing, or at least I've noticed, a pattern in terms of the manner in which he conducts himself. And I really do have questions.
Yes.
What
And you
question?
explained,
Hold on.
ultimately called these officers back, correct?
Yes.
And you explained to them that you had been untruthful with them, correct?
I explained that I had forgotten to mention a couple of people
Listen, this is a this is a well-prepared witness, because somebody else would have just said, yeah, I was untruthful. And she, instead of just saying yes or no, she goes on to explain what it is that occurred.
I had reached out to.
You had forgotten. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
You had forgotten. You remembered Matt and you remembered Carrie, but you had forgotten the others that you had just contacted maybe 30 minutes before.
Yes.
There were 5 people that you contacted, weren't there?
I contacted Matt.
Let's go through them. I'm
Yeah.
just asking yes, no. You know them?
I know 4 off the top of my head.
Okay, let's go through them.
Okay.
You contacted your husband, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Carrie Roberts, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Peggy O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
Then, Ms. McCabe, you contacted the district attorney's office, correct?
My witness advocate.
The district attorney's office.
Okay.
My witness advocate who works for the district attorney's office.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
And you also left out that you contacted Brian Albert himself, correct?
Yes, my brother-in-law.
For some reason, your brother-in-law, who's the 30-year police detective, correct?
Yes.
And on whose lawn John O'Keefe was found dead or dying.
Absent, I was thinking about this today. Absent Proctor and, his misconduct, this case could have potentially been a nightmare for the defense. And the reason for that is because during voir dire, I believe we went over some of those voir dire questions. And typically in a criminal case, there are questions about whether a juror is more likely to believe a law enforcement officer by virtue of their office, because it does tend to be problematic. And some people are much more likely to believe law enforcement as opposed to other, lay witnesses. So considering how many law enforcement officers are involved in this case had a real potential to be a nightmare for Karen Reed's defense. But again, they have the blessing of Michael Proctor himself.
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Correct?
Yes.
For some reason, you did not want these officers to know that you had communicated specifically with Brian Albert, the homeowner, just before you talked to them, correct?
No, incorrect.
There was some reason.
Real thing, spoilers are always welcome, okay? Always welcome.
That was important enough for you to lie about that, even though you had been admonished that it's a crime to lie about that to those officers, correct?
Incorrect. I didn't.
And I want to know, the real thing, what are your impressions of Jen? How do you think she did during cross-examination? Because I think, unless I'm mistaken, I believe that cross-examination is pretty much done. On Friday, Brandon gets into redirect. He says it's going to last about 25 minutes. And he does it. Oh, that's what I should have looked at my notes before I came up here. Because that was the plan. That's what I was going to start off with. The initial sidebar, if you will, with a court, where Brandon is pretty much making it clear that he has 2 clips of Karen Reed that is going to play at the conclusion of Jan McCabe's testimony. I'm curious. I want to know exactly what it is that is going to play. We're going to move on from Karen Reed taking the stand in the prosecution's case, but that has to be the dumbest move from. I don't know if that's the dumbest move from the defense, or if Alan Jackson's conduct with an expert, that's probably far worse. But some people do love the cameras.
Lie to them. I had forgotten who I had called.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, you had an epiphany right after they
You
walked
said
out the door?
epiphany.
Yes. Matt said, who have you spoken to?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it. It's out. You're not to go any further, Mr. Jackson.
Ms. McCabe, I want to draw your attention to January 28th.
Okay.
You had gone out drinking with your family at the Waterfall Bar and Grill, correct?
These people had a serious drinking problem.
I went with my husband and met my sister, yes.
And met the other family, correct? The other family members, meaning
My niece.
Matt McCabe, Nicole, Chris, Julie, Caitlin, correct?
Yes,
And I think you mentioned Tristan was there as well.
yes,
You were later joined by Nick and Karina Kolakithis, is that right?
yes,
Ultimately, Brian Higgins showed up
yes,
and Brian Albert showed up.
yes.
Yeah, as far as the cross-examination style, every once in a while we had classic cross-examination. You guys know that's the only one. Let me not say only. We have to be careful about absolutes. But that is my preferred method of cross-examination, where the attorney has control over the witness and they ask questions that the witness really cannot escape. And it's yes, no responses. Attorney has good control of the witness and they're not really engaged in fights and arguments.
You previously indicated that Caitlin's boyfriend, Tristan, left early for whatever reason. He had parents to run or had to get to bed early for some reason. Is that right?
He left before us, yes.
So he didn't stay through the shank of the evening.
Through the what?
The shank of the evening, through the course of the evening.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And ultimately, at the waterfall, John O'Keefe and Miss Reed showed up as well.
yes.
You didn't see any tension at all between
Yeah,
John
I
O'Keefe
missed
and
this. I
Karen that
definitely
night,
did
did
not
you?
watch any
No,
of
I
this.
didn't.
They appeared to be getting along.
Yes,
Sort of a normal couple having a nice evening out together.
yes.
Neither John nor Karen Reed appeared drunk or
What's
inebriated,
up,
out of
Bonnie
sorts.
girl?
No,
How are you doing, my friend? I don't know if you've been actually I have a question. Yeah, I don't know if you've been keeping up with this trial. I don't even know what you're doing up, but let me move on. So I was wondering, did they bring in the I love it text or not? Real thing, do you know? Because I remember from the first trial, I remember this because I've been saying it ever since, where there was a text about, I think it was a group chat, where Jan McCabe sent a group text, I guess, to her relatives. And she said that, think the text was something along the lines of Carrie's telling them everything. I love it. Did that text come in, or is that something they actually did not touch on?
I wouldn't categorize them as drunk or inebriated.
Wait, what? What's going on?
Reed appeared drunk or inebriated, out of sorts.
No.
No, I wouldn't categorize them as drunk or inebriated.
And not
But again, I don't know what the
Yeah,
definition of.
so here's the other thing, okay? And those, now that I've at least three things that are going through my mind right now. So the one which kind of distracted me right now, as far as this question whether Karen Reed appeared drunk or inebriated. Sure, it's a question worth asking, but a lot of that work is undone by Karen Reed's own statements or testimony about how much she drank. So it's good that he's asking it as a question, but the jurors have the reference point of Karen Reed actually, telling uh who was she telling, producers or interviewers how much it is that she drank. And then the point that I actually wanted to make was that so the O'Keefes are suing Karen Reed for wrongful death. Okay, they're suing Karen Reed, and again, lower standard in civil cases. And then there's also a potential dram shop suit where they're potentially going after the establishments that fed Karen Reed the alcohol. So we have some other issues that are taking place alongside this trial.
Drunk is.
Well, that's a fair statement. I'm not asking for their BAC, but they didn't appear to be stumbling around, falling all over themselves and sloppy drunk, correct?
No.
Out of control, nothing like that?
Nope.
Okay.
And while we're on the subject of intoxication, I can barely see from here, but I'm trying to figure out if I have my forensic medicine book, because there's a really good chapter on intoxication. Okay. So not so much as it relates to, I don't think that chapter refers so much to defendants, but it refers to, I think it talks mostly about victims, right? Because I'm thinking about John O'Keefe. He had been drinking that night as well, so his reaction times would have been much slower than any other person, if we are to go along with the prosecution's theory that theory that Karen Reed allegedly hit him. Excuse me. Apart from the fact that him allegedly banging his head on the ground or the concrete, that would have incapacitated him. But even if he was still conscious, the intoxicate, I'm just having a deja vu moment. I don't know what the hell this means, but I'm having a moment. It's weird. I'm kind of freaking out, but let's proceed. So him having consumed alcohol definitely slows down his reaction time. All right, let's see. Dang, I missed out on a lot. Okay, so Real Thing says Jen was more calm but too evasive and defensive. Wanting to explain many of her answers did not look good for her credibility. Also, she should have talked to Amber Heard because Amber would have told her that constantly looking at the jury doesn't go over well with them. Okay, and then Callie says she's been in meetings all day trying to catch up with actual work. No, I'm sorry, my friend. Okay. Then Callie says, genuine question. Do drunk people appear drunk to other? Ooh, that is a good question. I don't know that drunk folks appear drunk to other drunk folks unless you actually do have self-awareness. So, yeah.
Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at a high top table, sort of together through the course of that evening, correct?
Who? Hold on. Who?
Sort of together.
Brian who?
Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at a high top table, sort of together through the course of that evening, correct?
We were all kind of around like a long high top table.
And John O'Keefe, and as you look at I'm going to use the perspective of the video that we've seen, that camera angle that we've seen. John O'Keefe and Miss Reed were sort of further off in the corner, closer to the bar rather than to the tables, correct? Along with the Kolakitases and those, and you, as a matter of fact.
Yes. At different times, everyone was kind of moving around. I spent the majority of the time that Karen and John were there speaking with Karen.
Okay. And that was sort of over toward the bar.
We weren't in the bar, we were at the table. So it was one side of the table and the other. It wasn't like far away.
Right.
Kind of, yeah.
I'm using the bar sort of as a landmark for nothing. I didn't mean you were sidled up to the bar, but just sort of as a landmark. You were closer to the bar than, for instance, in the foreground, which would be the high top tables in the foreground, correct?
We were just on the other, I'm confused about this. We were just on the other side of the table.
Okay.
All right.
You did see on the opposite side of that high top table, that's where Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were standing, talking and communicating with each other. Is that right?
I believe so. I was talking to Mr.
These people do look old. So I'd like to presume that everybody's retired. That probably makes sense. I was just looking at all these people in the court.
I wasn't really paying attention to them.
Did you ever see those two men get physical with one another that night?
I did not that night. I did not see that.
Have you ever seen a
Right.
full
You mean that night.
review in all the hours that you've sort of prepped for your testimony? Have you been shown that waterfall video from the time you got there until the time you left?
Not the full video, but I have seen a good portion of it, yes.
Okay, and you've certainly seen the portion where Brian Albert and Brian Higgins get up from the table and sort of get physical with one another, correct?
Drunk people.
I would say more like play fighting, and Nick Kolakidis was a little bit like doing it with them as well.
Okay, so the physical part is, all I'm asking is, did they touch each other? Yes.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And you described it as play fighting, correct?
I don't, we could watch the video, it might explain it better than I could.
She's trying to be in control.
Oh, okay.
But right now, I'm just asking about your memory. You remember them squaring off on one another, playing, but squaring off on one another,
I
correct?
don't remember them squaring off. Like I said, I just watched the video. I don't remember it from that night, and I didn't really pay attention. It looked like foolish, like guys just, I don't even know how to describe it.
From your perspective, having watched the video,
Mhm.
it appeared that they squared off on each other and sort of took a fighting stance.
That's an answer.
I didn't look at it that in depth, so I could not say that.
Did you see them walk up to each other and grapple with one another? Like they didn't notice punching each other.
Right.
I get that.
Mhm.
Were they grappling with one another, like faking punches to each other?
I don't know.
Almost like sparring a little bit.
Sure, she just said she doesn't.
I don't honestly know.
But you did see them.
I saw them together. It's blurry, and they're kind of, I don't know really what they're doing.
Okay, but they weren't standing there holding hands for
Oh, God, no. No.
Wait, what?
Really what they're doing.
Okay, but they weren't standing there holding hands for
Oh, God, no. No.
They weren't on their phones.
I did not hear that.
Okay, but they weren't standing there holding hands for
Oh, God, no. No.
They weren't,
Really what they're doing.
okay, but they weren't standing there holding hands for
Oh, God, no.
Holding hands.
No.
They weren't on their phones, right?
They were engaging with each other playfully, grabbing at each other. I don't really,
Playfully grabbing each other, play fighting, correct? That's my point.
I'd have to watch the video to categorize it as play fighting.
You don't have that in your head?
I didn't know, it was a quick clip. I wasn't like focusing on Brian and Brian. I was just identifying that was myself in the video, and there was Miss Reed. And I believe Miss Reed actually did some play fighting to Matt.
There was, in fact, to Matt.
Yeah, I feel like she was about like this to Matt at one point. Yeah,
Okay,
in the video.
so let's talk about,
Can we
let's
watch
talk
it?
about Brian
Mhm.
Higgins and Brian Albert.
Mm-hmm.
Those two men, very large in stature, correct?
They're big guys, yeah.
Big boys.
All right, so I'm just giving it. I'm trying to see where defense is leading or trying to lead the jury, because this is obviously going to. I need to stop using the word obviously. To me, it appears that they are setting up the framework for this third-party culprit. But if Brian and Brian are fighting, we're not even going to say play fighting, because the defense wants the jurors to believe that they were involved in some type of altercation, or there was some type of tension between them. I'm trying to figure out how to make the leap where the conflict between Brian and Brian somehow leads to them attacking, allegedly, them attacking John O'Keefe. I'm trying to see the connection there. I'm not there. I'm not there. All right, so Callie says that she's trying not to compare testimony to what she said in the first trial. Honestly, I got the thought or idea of watching both testimony. I just don't have time. Like things I'd like to do that I don't have time to do, but I am interested in seeing cross-examination side by side. I don't know that I can do it this Sunday, but that would potentially be the only time when I can do it.
A lot bigger than me, right?
Yeah.
They took a fighting stance with each other and started grappling, playing, coming toward each other as if they were engaging in a fake physical altercation, correct?
I did not see that. I'm sorry.
Okay. You didn't even see it on the video.
I saw them on the video grabbing at each other. I didn't see stances but again, I didn't pay much attention to it.
And that's your best memory as you sit here
Can you
today.
play the video?
Yes.
Or are you waiting
Okay.
for the Bryans?
Eventually, you, your husband, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Nicole, Caitlin, everybody went over to
I
34.
still do not understand what Victoria George was hired for. I don't see her. I'm trying to zoom in. Whose hands are these? I think he's is he a stenographer or is he the one in charge of exhibits? I have no idea. But I don't see her taking notes. I don't see her doing anything. So I should not be backing up.
Or Fairview at the end of the night,
Yes.
correct? The bar closed at, I'm guessing, midnight.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Is that right?
Higgins?
I think we were wrapping up around then. I don't know what time it actually closes.
When you left Waterfall, the people that were still there included Matt, your husband, and John O'Keefe. Is that
Oh,
right?
and Turtle Boy had a hearing, some sort of hearing today. The video was recommended to me. I did not watch the video.
Yes.
You walked out with Karina Kolakithis and Karen Reed.
Yes.
And you said to Miss Reed something along the lines of, "You're coming with me," correct?
I said, why don't you come with me?
Okay, fair enough. You were prompting her to join you for the ride over to 34 Fairview. Is that right?
Yes.
You even went outside and sort of waited in the cold. There's a video. Have you seen the video of you outside? The surveillance video of you outside in the cold?
Yes.
And you're sort of waiting there, moving from foot to foot like it's freezing out, which I'm sure it was, correct?
Yes.
In a big puffy coat. of
And that's
some
what
kind,
I've
right?
noticed about Jan McCabe in today's proceedings. She tends to smile more. She smiles a lot. She chuckles every once in a while. So that's kind of, I suppose, a different presentation from the previous trial.
So the question was, I moving foot to foot in a coat? Yes.
My question is more, did you see yourself waiting outside the cold?
I saw myself convert. I believe I was in a conversation at that point when I was standing out there with John and Karen.
And that's when you were asking Karen to come with you?
No, I had asked Karen previously when we were at the door to come with me because I didn't know how long Matt and John were going to be in the bar because they
Right.
were in there still.
And that would have, by definition, brought Karen to 34 Fairview separate and apart from John O'Keefe if Karen had come with you.
Yes.
Okay, what's your point?
Miss Reed ultimately declined.
I don't get I suppose let me let Jackson carry on because I don't get where he's going with this line of
Your invitation and did go with John. Is that right?
John ended up coming to the door, so they just went together. Yes.
And finally, you walked away and went with your husband, Matt, over to 34 Fairview in your personal vehicle, correct?
Yes.
When you arrived at 34 Fairview, were you the first among the group that we've just talked about to arrive, or had others arrived?
Yeah,
before
I
you?
don't know. I still do not understand the purpose. So we've talked about this over and over again. During cross-examination, the attorney should really be trying to establish something. Okay, they have to ask questions that either attack the witness's credibility, attack their memory, questions that show inconsistencies, questions that further the the defense or the prosecution's theory, things along those lines. It is not in dispute that Karen Reed and John O'Keefe went to 34 Fairview together. So I don't understand what the purpose was of asking those specific questions. Because again, Karen Reed and John O'Keefe went to, the Alberts together.
Others had arrived before me.
When you walked in to 34 Fairview, where was everybody generally located? Give me a layout of the interior of the home, how you walked in and where everybody was located, the people that were there when you walked in from the waterfall.
So I walked in through the front door. I took a right into the kitchen. And then there were people sitting around the kitchen table, Brian Albert Jr., Julie Nagel, Sarah Levinson, Caitlin Albert. My sister was over more towards like the counters in the sink, and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were, there's like a room right off of the kitchen, like a TV room, and they were in there just talking. I think Nicole had like put up some new pictures, so, or maybe the sun and the Marines, they might have been looking at a picture. Vaguely have a faint memory of that.
You indicated that you walked in the front door, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
May I approach briefly?
Yes.
Okay, so real thing is saying that the internet. I've not been on Reddit today, or at least not on Core TV. So real thing says that the internet wants the internet believes that Alan Jackson wants a jury to infer Brian and Brian were very intoxicated and rough housing at the Waterfall Bar, and that aggressive behavior continued when John something. Okay. Uh I don't know. I don't know that that's enough. You need to like he needs to give more information. I don't know. I don't know that we have enough, but we're pretty much in, these are the early stages. We have another few weeks, maybe even a month before the prosecution's done. So
Sure. Yeah, this is your copy. I'll take care of that. Can you just take a look at that photograph just a quick second?
Yes.
Do you recognize
yeah, I
that
need to
photograph?
see that
Yes.
footage.
What do you recognize that photograph as being?
It's my sister's house.
34 Fairview?
Yes, sorry, 34 Fairview.
Brian Albert's house as well.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark this as marked for identification. There's a
Identification's fine.
thank you. If I may. What would be the next in order?
Exhibit F for identification.
Thank you.
Oh, and here's another thing that I wondered, right? The other thing that I was wondering is somewhere during today's testimony, I believe it was the cross-examination. No. This is in relation to, I'm just wondering, I'm going to try and figure out what defense is trying to do here. But I thought about Chloe a little bit. Maybe, did Jen talk about Chloe at all? Did I miss any of that? I don't remember hearing about Chloe. But I'm trying to see if defense is arguing that Chloe attacked John O'Keefe inside the residence or outside the residence. Because if it's outside, I have more questions about that. Things I've been wondering about.
Go ahead, just while you're on.
Okay.
Hang on.
What exhibit number is that, Mr. Wolf? 3.
And I'm going back to, what the internet, is, what is this? I'm not going to say it's a hypothesis because I know that it can be proved. But as far as what some folks have gathered about, this fighting or so-called fighting stance between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, okay? if let us assume for a second that these two individuals were actually not getting along at the bar, I find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe that they would then proceed to, or not even they, because obviously Brian Albert has to go home one way or another, right? But this is rational from a rational perspective, folks that are not intoxicated, because there was a lot of alcohol involved in this case, okay? But I'd like to believe that from a rational perspective, I find it hard to believe that a rational Brian Higgins would have followed through and gone to the Alberts home if the two Bryans were not getting along. What would have been the purpose of that? To try and make amends? I don't know. I just have a hard time following um, that theory. I have a hard time reconciling that in my mind. But then again,
Your Honor,
we
with the
don't
court's
have enough
permission, I'm going
text,
to
so
show a different exhibit until the other issue can be resolved. With the court's permission, it's Commonwealth Exhibit 3. Permission to publish?
Yes.
Mr. Will, could you highlight or enlarge the house as much as you can? Thank you.
okay. That is actually a lot of snow accumulation.
Ms. McCabe, do you recognize what's depicted in this photo? I know it's a little bit of an angle.
Yes,
What is that?
that is 34 Fairview.
Okay. Can you, I think this laser will work. May I approach?
Yes.
Use that laser and point to the front door that you entered
Okay.
when you walked in the house. Okay, that's directly in the middle of the just to the left of the flagpole for this purposes of this photograph, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there another entry door on the house that you may not be able to see, but you know the general area?
Yes.
Where's that door?
So that would be, see where these two windows are?
Yes.
The door would be kind of behind that right there. So it's right to the left of those two windows.
Okay.
And Ms. McCabe, just staying with doors for a second, is there another door associated with the garage?
Oh, actually, yeah, there is. Right there.
Right there next to that side door?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. May I approach?
The
Yes.
3 points of, entrance and exit.
You didn't go in the side door, you went in the front door that night.
Yes.
You indicated that once inside the house, you were sort of in the kitchen area. Is that right?
I was in the kitchen. Yes.
You weren't paying special attention to Brian Albert or Brian Higgins, what they were doing. As a matter of
No.
fact, I think they went into a different room. Is that right?
There's a room, kind of the kitchen opens up into the TV room. So they were in there.
So the only two that you recognized at this point in the night, not being sort of with everybody else, were Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, separated out in the family room or whatever that room's called, living room.
Yeah. If you like just right there, right where they are.
So, Real Thing says that Jackson asked Jen about Chloe today. And then not to mention, Brian Higgins had a bone to pick. Remember, Karen unfortunately ghosted Higgins 8 days before. Then Higgins texted Karen while they were all at the waterfall, and Karen ignored him again. And then Callie says justice for Chloe. Big shout out to Chloe. All right. I understand, Brian Higgins. I understand Brian. I skipped a comment where? Wait. I think I actually skipped a lot. I skipped a lot of comments. I believe so. Let me see. Okay, is this the one? No, I think I read that. Which comment did I skip? I don't, I'm confused, Real Thing. I'm confused. Which comments go together? This one and this one up here? Yeah, I'd read both of them. I still do not. I understand the part about uh, Brian Higgins. Okay, I understand that Karen blew him off or whatever. What does not make sense is, okay, so let's say, for instance, for a second, let us assume that you know Brian Higgins may have been jealous that Karen Reed is with John O'Keefe instead, right? Because from the first trial, I do remember something along the lines of Brian Higgins having some sort of conversation with Karen Reed that night. Um, I still do not know how. I do not know how Brian Albert would become involved, and it gets even worse. Okay, let me try and streamline this. So not the prosecution, the defense wants the jurors to believe that first and foremost, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert had some type of altercation, or they were not on good terms at the bar. Okay. And apart from that, they also want the jurors to believe that there was some type of conflict or at least jealousy between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe. So if Brian Higgins has beef with Brian Albert as well as John O'Keefe, what benefit would Brian Albert get from taking John O'Keefe out? And it's even it even gets, at least from my perspective, that theory is a bit clouded and does not even make sense if the defendant wants the jurors to believe that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were not getting along. So if they were not getting along to begin with, why would Brian Albert be helping Higgins take his, I guess, the woman that he wants? How would he benefit from taking John O'Keefe out? So I don't know, too many layers to that, and it doesn't make sense to me. So okay, real thing will type again. Brian Albert wasn't involved. It was Higgins and Colin Albert. Well, that's not okay. Real thing's up here to explain. All right, come on.
Okay, so there is no theory at all that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were into it or had any beef or weren't getting along. No, not at all. That's not the theory, and no one believes that.
Okay, so what's, and that's why I find it hard to believe. Not that I
Hmm.
find it hard to believe. I do not understand the defense purpose for bringing up the fighting stance. What's the
Hmm.
significance of that?
Okay, I just want to say before I explain it, there is a video on the internet, of course, on YouTube explaining this. And because I'm female, it's going to be a little difficult. My brain is not wired like that. But of
Okay.
course, we've all seen males, it's a thing, right? Whatever that is, it's definitely testosterone driven. It's
All
like
right.
when they are engaging in that play fighting, rough housing, they're not trying to hurt each other, of course. But it is still a like a competition, who can get the best of the other,
Okay.
right? And it's something that they engage in. And when they're intoxicated, even more so for those that are, macho and rah rah and fighting, and they are cool, they're okay, they're not trying to hurt each other, they're not fighting for real. But as men, as males, I wish Brooklyn or somebody was here, maybe, or maybe even some Benji, can you help me
Benji might
explain?
be working. Benji, come
Okay.
up here if you're free.
Ba-
Yeah.
Basically, it's still a competition, it's still roughhousing. Yeah, wrestling with the homies, yes, but it's still a competition, like who's gonna win without hurting each other. So they're they're peacocking even in front of the women too. That's a part of it. They're trying to show off. They're trying to show who's the strongest. It's always going to be who's the alpha, who's the biggest, who's the strongest, who's the most fearless. So this continues on at the house. They're drunk though. They have poor judgment. That's what I had typed. I don't know why it didn't show up on your end.
Okay.
In their poor judgment, okay, the first trial tells us a lot. On a side note, this is, I deal with a lot of psychology too. Brian Higgins was single for a long time, alone for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And for Karen to show interest in him, that's why he like, are you fucking with me? Like, what? You're interested in me? He was shocked and excited, when all alone there's something else going on with Karen, on why he knows, like, Karen Karen is not the type of woman she is. That is not typical for her to be attracted to him. And it
In
was
what
like,
way? What is wrong with Brian Higgins that um he cannot, or folks would not, Karen Reed would not be attracted to him?
um okay.
Dang, I have her sitting up and everything. All right, all
Yeah,
right,
you
real
done made me
big.
sit up. Okay. All right. Before I say anything, just to establish something. When you see pictures of John O'Keefe, right? If you brought it here, I don't like to do this. But if, for the sake of this conversation, if we're comparing, right, him to Brian Higgins, we talked about this with Nathan Wade.
No, I was
There
thinking about Nathan Wade today. Actually, I was thinking
oh, see, look
about
at you.
his
Bonnie gonna get you.
body. Go ahead.
She might not, say nothing about all your opinions about her misconduct and her reputation, but about her man, she'll pull up on you.
I
Okay.
don't doubt that, but
So there is physical attraction, right? Which encompasses many different things, right?
hmm
And personality. And that's what we've talked about. The the charming, having charisma. It appears, just from all the information we got from the first trial,
hmm
not only is John O'Keefe attractive, more fit, these women are calling him, even the married ones. Not that they're trying to get with him, but they like him and they want to help him with his niece and nephew. He's very likable.
Okay.
And Brian Higgins, nothing wrong with him. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve love. I'm definitely not saying that. He just doesn't have that same magnetic personality, charm, as as a John O'Keefe. So
Okay.
he's like, what? Like, what's up with you and John? You going, like, you are interested in me, really? Okay. And she did engage him for, a while and kissed him. So he like, wow, this is real. Like, it's finally happening for him.
Okay.
And then nothing. She ghosts him. She stops communicating with him. Nothing. He didn't hear from her. And this is 8 days before she shows up, hugging and kissing John in
hmm
his face at the waterfall. Male psychology. Brian Higgins is hurt and he's drunk. And
Okay.
yeah, his buddy Brian Albert, they had just drove to New York, several hours there and back earlier that day. They talked about Karen, and they talked about how they were talking, she kissed him, and now he hasn't heard from her in 8 days. He talked about that. So now they're at the waterfall grill. Brian Albert is, you know, what's the word? Feeling bad, right, for his friend, and knows that he really likes Karen and this is all messed up. And he wants to like show himself to be like not a punk. He really was trying to get Karen's attention, perhaps, and trying to show like he ain't what? Like, why you playing me? Why are you trying to play with me? I'm a man. I'm strong. I'm macho. I ain't to be played with. And Brian Albert is going along with it. They're roughhousing. They're playing. So that's why he also texts John like, "Oh, you coming over here?" Of course, this is not planned. This is not premeditated
I was just
murder.
about to ask you that because in order for in order, at least in my mind, right? Then I will take advice from Fonnie Willis. I'm not the right person to talk about relationships. So, but in order for Brian Albert to be playing along in terms of trying to, I guess, show his friend off and how macho he is,
Mhm.
you'd have to be in on it. I just don't see. I just don't see that. But okay, go on, real thing. Oh,
There's
you
no.
changed your name back. Did you change your name back, or is it just me?
I put it up here since you always call me that. When I come
Oh,
in,
okay.
I
No,
can.
I just noticed, but
When
okay.
we come into the studio, we can change our name on our end.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
So no, there's no premeditation. No one knew that this was about to happen. It was not planned. They did not want it to happen, of
Okay.
course. So okay, so they gonna get John and Karen to come on over. Karen didn't come in. John comes in. They The theory is the basement. There's actual video.
I have a question for you. Let me quickly ask you this question, okay? But it's something to consider. All right.
Okay.
So when we're talking about, or at least when we're assuming
Mm-hmm.
that John O'Keefe entered the Albert residence, right? So
Yes.
are we then saying, because when he got out of the car, if I remember correctly, I believe he had a glass with him, right?
Yes.
If I remember correctly from the first trial, I believe that that glass was actually found out in the snow with him. Um,
Yes.
so what I'm questioning here is that if this man had actually entered, if he had actually entered this Albert residence, right? Would he not have put the glass down? And I know some people may argue that no, these individuals noticed that the glass belonged to Albert. So they decided, not Albert, I'm sorry, John. So they decided to, bury him in the snow with what is this? The glass. But I find it, that's just, again, we're playing with theories here and I guess assuming, but the glass to me makes it hard to believe that that man actually entered that residence.
Why would he not go in with the glass in his hand? Why you assuming he would have put it down?
No, I'm saying in the residence. If
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
entering,
put it down inside the house. Okay. Okay.
right,
I see.
I,
Yeah.
I think I think that if you're entering, if this whole thing is not planned, I think if you're entering a residence and you are drinking or whatever it is, or you're holding an object, when you do enter, or at least for John O'Keefe, I'd like to believe that he would have put that glass down. And here's the thing, because if we want to go as far as assuming that the O'Keefes buried the man in the snow and then they planted the glass to make it seem as if he never entered the residence, I would like these. I don't think these people are bright. I know I've been thinking that a lot, but I shouldn't be saying it out loud. I find it very hard to believe that these Alberts and them were bright. And to me, from a law enforcement, I'm not a law, I've never done law enforcement, but I'd like to think that from a law enforcement perspective, they could have come up with a better lie to make it seem as if John O'Keefe was an agitator and they had every reason to defend themselves. I think that would have been more believable than me trying to believe that this man walked into that house with a glass that never left his hand, and somehow the Brian decided to bury this man out in the snow and put a glass beneath or under his body. I don't know. That's just hard for me to believe, but I understand, it's just a theory, but I do question that.
Okay. There's more to that. I mean, there's more theories out there about that.
Okay.
Do you remember in the first trial? Because I may have gotten this wrong. The expert, didn't they say that glass that was found with his body that was cracked, broken, was not traced back to the waterfall? It wasn't the same glass? Or did they say it was?
I don't remember. I don't remember that. I don't remember that. But oh, while we're on the subject of Brian Higgins, let me say this. Because Callie and I don't know if you know this or not, but Callie and I are actually friends in real life.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, no, we're really friends in real life.
Nice.
We've been friends ever since we were 13. So when we go back to um Brian Higgins, okay, let's stick with Brian Higgins for a little bit, because Kelly and I did talk about this. I did not cover it on YouTube, but we did have a discussion about Brian Higgins' interaction with Karen Reed, or maybe it's the other way around. Karen Reed's interactions with, Brian Higgins in terms of kissing him, texting him, and the like. I am inclined to believe that Karen Reed had no real interest in Brian Higgins, but I think that she liked the attention. That is just my
I
sense.
agree. I
So
agree. I
yeah,
agree.
I don't think she actually liked him, but she liked the attention. Oh, okay. So Callie, I'm sorry, girl. I Zeta has my phone, so I'm not able to look anything up. And once you do get Brian Higgins' picture, please send it to me. So.
And that's another reason. Brian knows. He knows. That's why he was so skeptical and suspicious. Like, yeah, he could pick up on it. Like, what is this? She doesn't really like me. What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
But he's in a vulnerable position, so he entertained it, and I believe got hurt. So to quickly explain
Mm-hmm.
the theory is he came into the house. It was to be playing. It was just to play with him or kind of
With John?
with John. They were
Okay.
gonna. It's more like Brian is upset. What is he gonna do? He can't do anything to Karen. This is John is in the way. Like, he is the one that she really loves and wants to be with. She shouldn't have been playing with him. So he kind of, yeah, he got a bone to pick. So they begin. Well, this is the theory. When they talk about the Apple Health registering him ascending, descending, and then ascending again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those stairs,
Mm-hmm.
the layout of the house is once they entered in, the party is going on, the gathering is going on, the basement door, it's not that far, it's just a few steps. So as he went down into the basement and they want to engage him very quickly with a little like a confrontation, that perhaps he tried to go back up the stairs to say, nah, like, this ain't what he came there for. And then they pulled him back down the stairs. And as they engaged in the roughhousing, it went too far because they're intoxicated. And perhaps they hit him on the back of his head
That's
and
crazy.
fatally injured him.
So would this then be Brian Higgins and Colin Albert? Is that
Yes,
what
because
people are
they're the
saying?
ones that really have like this past whatever thing with him. Colin does, and then Higgins with Karen, like
Yeah,
him.
but the judge ruled that um Colin is not a third party culprit, so that theory falls apart.
Right. So the defense is going to have to work around it. Now, the only reason why mainly is, right? Because I could tell as a young man, Colin throwing stuff in John O'Keefe's, yard or jumping his fence. Like, that's kind of normal young boy, teenage type of stuff. Right. But, okay, he gets into it with John over the years as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And then the picture of him, Colin Albert, the picture of him with his friends, with his knuckles bruised. a few days after. The picture was taken a few days after. And his excuse of how he sustained those bruises on his knuckles, nobody's believing it. No one's buying that he fell down in the ice and maybe, but he braced himself by with the back of his hand on the ice and his knuckles got bruised. So
So
that's the issue.
I have a question here, right? Because if we're going with the defense cross examination of Jen McCabe today, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alan Jackson pretty much has Jen McCabe lay out the foundation of the home, who was where, basically positioning the individuals out. And during his cross examination, Alan Jackson is isolating Brian Albert and Brian Higgins because he keeps asking questions over and over again that those two individuals were off to the side by themselves. So, based on what the defense is trying to sell, I don't know that. I just, it's, to me, it's hard to reconcile that Colin Albert would have had anything to do with, roughing this man up, because that's not what the defense is currently
Yeah,
selling. That's not what they
yeah,
want the jurors to believe. So I don't know. I
right.
have a hard time. I just have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's the people that are just trying to figure out this mystery.
Yeah, yeah.
Just with that past history, they know Colin was there. Colin is see, that's other information. It ain't evidence, but it's just like his history of, I'm not gonna say like being a bully, but just more aggressive. More he's into heavy sports, and it is just, I think them basing it on his history with John O'Keefe, his personality, and if he showed up at the house and there's an issue, perhaps he jumped in. No, it won't be presented in court. It can't be. If it was just Higgins, that could be the case as well. Here's my question to you.
Hmm.
If that truly happened, let's say it was only Higgins that confronted him, like, yeah, your girl, she ain't want to come in because she's been texting me and she kissed me or whatever, and there's something happened there and it went too far, way further than they ever expected, and now John is unconscious. Do you
Are you
think?
still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
here. You're saying that in in because they're law enforcement, even though they're intoxicated, the thought would have been, go ahead, call the police and tell the truth, and tell them John came into their residence where he's outnumbered and was the aggressor, and therefore they acted in self-defense.
I think that them being law enforcement, again, I don't think that these people are bright, but I'd like to believe that they could have come up with a better lie than, having somebody out on your front lawn and not knowing about it. I find it hard to believe. Every other theory that I've come across is not convincing to me. I find it hard to believe that they, again, to me, what complicates it is the glass. It's hard for me to believe that this man would have entered that residence and hung onto that glass the entire time.
He
I just
didn't
don't
he
see it.
didn't he put it down. He put it down. You know, where's his hat? Where's John O'Keefe's hat that he had on? Where is his other shoe? They
As
put
as far as shoe,
uh, uh,
as far as shoe,
they
when
got
it
swept
comes
away with
to
the plow.
for shoe, I'm not really concerned with a shoe. I was never concerned with a shoe, but I still do have a hard time believing what the defense is selling. I have a hard time believing that because to me it doesn't make sense. I just I have a hard time believing it. And especially in this context of, again, we're still in the infancy of the case. I believe we're only a week in or something along those lines, maybe a week and a half. Maybe they develop it further, but
Mm-hmm.
based on Alan Jackson's line of questioning right now, he's talking about a fighting stance between the two Bryans, and then he's talking about how they were isolated in the residence. Okay, so he's definitely setting that up for, you know, third party culprit. As far as Brian Higgins, I could potentially understand what the issue is over there, but I'd like to think that he'd go after Karen and not John O'Keefe if that was the case. Um, but I still do not see what stake Brian Albert would have, in as far as, trying to take out John O'Keefe because Karen Reed does not want anything to do with, or Karen Reed rather is using Brian Higgins. To
Yeah.
me, those things are not, I cannot reconcile those two together because they're just too attenuated. And I mean, I was not there, so it may very well be that that's what happened. But
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, I just have a hard time believing that. There used to be there are two things. The one back, I cannot remember how old my daughter was at the time, but there was a mysterious case out of Chicago. I think it was the Kanika Jackson case or something along those
Yeah.
lines. Is that
Yes.
something you're familiar with?
Yes,
So
I'm from Chicago.
I know
Mm-hmm.
you're from Chicago, so that's
Yes.
what I'm asking. So with that case, though, I followed the case. I watched a bunch of videos about the case, and a lot of people were of the opinion that something happened with a friend as far as Kanika and ending up in a commercial refrigerator and actually ending up, undressing or whatever it was, if I remember correctly. So when you're just looking at that case, sure, there were a lot of theories and people said a whole lot of things, and there were a bunch of conspiracies going on.
Mm-hmm.
Under those circumstances, if you look at some of the science, it is not inconceivable that somebody would undress as they're coming down with hypothermia. So to me, it's the Kanika Jensen. It's one of those cases where there's so many theories,
Theories.
and you
Internet theories for
right,
sure.
theories and conspiracies. Some of them might be interesting, but the pieces are just not adding up. So to me, that is this Karen Reed case. And there was a long time ago, there was a TV show, I think it was on CW, but it was a really cool concept, but I hate that um, it did not go past the pilot season. It was never renewed. But the show was called Justice. What I liked about this show is that every episode was a different trial or case, right? And at the very end of the episode, they'd actually show you what really happened, which is, it's different because it's not something you're actually able to do in real life. So I wish that this Karen Reed case would have been one of those where there are all these theories and conspiracies, and we have God come down
And tell us
and pretty much, play the whole scene
what
for
really
all of us. But
happened. Yeah,
yeah,
we really want to know. We really
so
want to know what really happened
yeah,
on
and
that night.
we're not. I doubt we find out unless somebody writes a book and confesses down the line. But I have a question for you, okay? What I would like to know is, do you think I don't know the number of people that were actually in that residence, but there were a lot. Do you think that these people would be able to keep a story together?
Over the years, that's another theory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, something may break. Someone may get in trouble, legal trouble.
Okay.
And this case is pending in theory, people believe, the DOJ, we got the FBI involved. There are other agencies that want to know what happened to John O'Keefe, and they really want to solve the case. Especially if Karen Reed again it's a hung jury, or if she's acquitted completely. They want to find out what really happened. So if if something breaks down in the relationships, if someone gets in legal trouble and they say, well, hey, you know how that go, you were a prosecutor, hey, we'll work out a deal if you tell us what happened on that night, the truth, and then maybe we'll find out.
So what are the chances of a coerced confession, not even a confession, but a coerced story under those circumstances? Because I always have problems with this idea that an individual gave testimony or gave up something because they were facing legal trouble. I
Mm-hmm.
think under those circumstances, the authorities are much more likely to um, arrest somebody that actually had no part in any of this. So I don't know that that would be reliable. Good night, my friend. And Callie did say that that's a good ratio. She thinks Karen Reed may have better luck if there are more men than women on the final jury. At least she's looking at the angle of potential jealousy. So,
Oh, okay.
uh,
It-
yeah,
your
that's
your friend Callie is in the legal field. Is she a jury and consultant?
no,
She should
no,
be.
no, she's not.
So I've seen one major case where that worked out for the person, and they worked out a deal. I know there are many cases, but I know a big profile case that worked out for them. Of course, it has to be backed with evidence, right?
Right.
Um,
What
and
case was that?
it was it's a
Real thing? Are you still there? You just went out.
hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I went out to Google it. It
Oh,
doesn't. It's the case of the Memphis NBA star
is that the one
who,
where the wife? No, I think that was
yeah,
Tennessee.
yeah, the
The
Tennessee.
wife?
Sorry, that is
Yeah,
Memphis, Tennessee.
yeah,
The wife,
I watched too many trials. I need to quit. Like,
yes, I can't remember his name. That's a crazy case.
I
But
can
yeah,
see the
the
woman's face.
wife
I don't,
got
yeah,
away with it for years. She
right.
got away from it. So I watched the whole trial of, what was his name? Keith, her co-conspirator, the one she convinced to do it.
I don't remember their names. I just know what the woman looked like.
That trial is a really good trial, and that judge is, to me, he's like famous now down there in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Basically, the cousin was brought in on the planning, but he wasn't there on the day that it happened, but they did get him the day after because she dropped the gun. So he had so much corroborating evidence with the forensic data. I think it was Cellbrite, showing where the phones were. He took them to the pond that him and, I forgot his name, oh boy, went to. They drove down the highway about 75 miles, pulled over, threw the gun in like a little pond. They
Mhm.
searched that pond the first time, didn't find it. Years later, he took them back to it and they found it.
Mhm.
He has so much corroborating evidence to show he was a part of the planning. He knew who did it, how it happened. He helped them in the end. And what happened was, he unfortunately, if you remember, killed his girlfriend.
Right.
And his cousin had promised that she was going to get him a lawyer, and she didn't.
Mhm.
So he got mad.
Mhm.
And when I think he had a mistrial, then a second trial, he was convicted. So he's sitting in prison. She didn't come through. So he approached the DA's office and told them, hey, let me work a deal out with you. Because he wanted to get out of prison, of course.
Right. Right.
And they did it.
Yeah,
Because that
but
that
go
it
ahead. I'm
worked,
sorry.
and it worked out because They found out the truth, basically.
Yeah, but under these circumstances, with these folks, considering that there are so many of them, and there was a lot of communication, especially via text, I would just like, there's no way, there's no such thing as committing a perfect crime. If somebody gets away with it, it's either shoddy police investigation or sheer luck. So, because it's a lot of them, and they were texting and communicating a lot, I find it hard to believe that they could have concorded something and just get away. I mean, it is Canton, and they apparently
Well,
don't
look.
so.
You're giving it to us. You're giving it to the people that are believing these theories. The main two people that will be texting a whole lot, the two Bryans, destroyed. That we no one has the full evidence or full extraction of their phones. And it was very intentional. Now I know they probably are covering up other things. I believe that too. People, how Higgins destroyed his phone, his SIM card, took it to a military base. He definitely knew how to absolutely get rid of it. And
To
he there
me, though, from my perspective, I think the destruction of, if we're going to be fair, right, which is what I strive for,
Mhm.
if we're going to be fair, I think the destruction of those phones is null and void in the context of Alan Jackson and Dr. Dan
Oh
something, Dr.
Lord.
Walt.
Did you get
So,
my email? I know you've been busy.
no, let me go there now.
I sent you a very good, thorough
let,
email.
let me take a look, because I did not.
I can't, when you have time, I can't wait to hear your
Let me
perspective.
now.
I sent it to I want a real lawyer at
Yeah, no,
Gmail.
I'm taking a look at it now.
Oh, okay.
I'm taking a look at it. Oh, you gave me timestamps and everything.
Oh
You
yeah.
are the business. She is the business. Okay. All right. Let's take a for this though. Let me unmark.
Later.
I'm
The
gonna mark
later.
it unread. Yeah. As far as getting to those emails, I think realistically that would have to be something that I do on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can talk. I'm probably just gonna email you back while I'm watching, in order to have a response. But we can definitely have greater discussions about it on Monday. So
The real thing I'm posing to you, because you just brought it up again,
yeah,
I agree with you on the many reasons why these lawyers that are now YouTubers are not making a big deal of it. And you are. You're making a big, that's why I said, wow, you're standing on business about that. Like that's a big, big, big old
yeah.
red
No,
flag problem
I
to
just
you.
mean
And
we.
they're not. They are dismissing it completely. And you're gonna see when you look at what I
All right.
sent you.
No,
They're
we have.
totally
We
dismissing
do.
it.
We do have to strive to be fair. Because I was watching. Part of, again, I missed it because I had to do a CLE, but I watched a little bit of the lunch hour break, and they have an attorney out of Massachusetts that was the guest attorney on today's show. And I don't exactly remember what the question was, but it related to the question related to, I guess, reactions from Karen Reed supporters and viewers that, are pretty much supporting Karen Reed. And this guest attorney said that certain things are, or the reason why, a lot of people are dismissing certain aspects of this trial that are important is because they've already made up their minds. They've chosen a
Yes.
side, and they've clearly
Yes.
chosen Karen Reed's side.
And
But
nothing can change their mind. Not
right.
one thing.
But I just mean, if we're going to look at the evidence and where to weigh the evidence, we do have to be fair, because I have a hard time understanding why um, viewers want to make a big deal of the Alberts or the Bryants or whatever their names are destroying their SIM cards whereas they want then these same people have zero problem with Dr. Wolf doing the same thing. So, and they have zero problems with the defense attorney Jackson, directing this expert to, what's the name of the app, Signal or whatever it is. So I don't know. I try to be fair because again, I don't have a dog in this fight. So I
They're,
think
and I know the lay people don't really understand. I will include myself because they're like, see, now you see how it feels. That's how they're looking at it. Like, oh yeah, the Bryans did this too. Now we're even. You see how it feels? That's how they're looking at it.
I don't
Yeah, they're like, see, yeah, it doesn't feel good when you can't have the data. Now we're all even.
let me actually let's take a look at these comments because I read comments every once in a while, but I don't always, watch what's going on. Okay, we need to find the timestamp for the dog because I don't remember. I was not at my desk when they asked about that. Let's see.
Basically, she said, Alan, he's painting a picture. We do believe he's setting a lot of foundation. He's setting up a point to, make his bigger point later with other witnesses. But
Okay.
basically, to cut to the chase, he's asking Jen today, when she went in that house, where was Chloe? Basically,
Mm-hmm.
he got to. He said, was Chloe at the door? Did she meet you in the hallway? Brian last year in the first trial says Chloe sleeps in the room with them. What
Okay.
did Chloe do when she ran in their bedroom, supposedly? Now, of course, most of us on the internet believes they were not asleep. But nevertheless, Jen says she ran in the house, ran upstairs, went into their bedroom, woke them up. Alan Jackson says, where was Chloe? Did Chloe do anything? How did she react? Jen
Mm-hmm.
says, I don't remember Chloe. I don't remember. Like, I grew up with a German Shepherd. I'm actually scared of dogs because of the German Shepherd that I grew up with.
Yeah.
So I know how they behave. And there's no what? She doesn't remember seeing Chloe. It's not that simple. Chloe was not there, and that's what basically Alan Jackson wants the jury to know. Why? What happened? Chloe was there. She was there, and Brian Albert is going to testify to that because he said he let Chloe out to, use the bathroom. That's normal. And that goes to possibly your theory that you were thinking about, that when Brian Albert during the party let Chloe out, he said when they came home from the waterfall, he immediately let Chloe out to use the bathroom, that's normal as a dog owner.
Okay.
If that fence was open and John was on the lawn, presumably because something has happened with Karen and she didn't hit him or clipped him or something, and he's passed out in the snow. Perhaps Chloe did come upon John in the snow, and either to get his attention or wake him up or just scratch on him or bite on him.
A scratch on him. I
It
should
could
not be laughing, but okay, go
It
on.
could have happened then when she was let out to use the bathroom and the gate was open, perhaps. That's one theory. But
Okay.
nevertheless, last year, Brian Albert said Chloe came back in after she used the bathroom. So now, hours later, Jen runs into the house to let them know, oh no, John was found in the lawn. Alan Jackson asks, where was Chloe? How did she react? She says she doesn't remember seeing Chloe when she went into the house. And even when she went into the bedroom, Chloe must not have been there. Why? Where was she?
Okay, so if we are, because this is the other question that I wrote for myself on my legal pad here, and that's when I mentioned the dog earlier, when I wanted to know if the defense is arguing that the dog was inside the residence or outside the residence when it supposedly attacked John O'Keefe. My thing is this: if the defense wants the jurors to believe that Chloe attacked. And here's the thing, that's actually, the theory is a little bifurcated in the sense that if John O'Keefe was already, laid stretched out on the lawn at the time that Chloe supposedly attacked him, then I do not know that his cause of death can be attributed to Chloe. But here's the other thing. If we are to believe that, Chloe let the residents went outside, clawed or bit, I don't know that he bit, but he
Scratch.
clawed.
Mhm.
What's that?
Oh yeah, scratch, clawed
Yeah.
at him. Hmm.
Right. So, scratched or clawed this man. Uh, I was curious about whether there's any indication of any paw prints in the snow, because again, I've lived
Hmm.
in some pretty snowy conditions, and with that fresh snow, you're gonna see something. Okay, so there should have been evidence of a dog being out there in the snow. Um, had he actually attacked this man outside? So that's the one thing that I was asking myself today as I was listening to um, what is this, today's testimony.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Yeah.
that that was presented. What's that?
And that's the problem. A proper investigation was not completed.
Yeah.
You know,
So we
that's a
we
real big problem. It would have been nice, if they would have sealed the scene off, took pictures carefully, took their time, even in the blizzard, even with the snow and everything.
right.
So, but I think I just want to say the defense wants to make sure the jury understands John was in that house, no matter what. So, any attack, Chloe jumping in because of the commotion, because there is two men fighting. Chloe jumps
Mhm.
in. She's already not good with strangers. That's been established over and over. Jackson
Yeah.
says that all the time. And there is actual a fight where uh someone could be the dog is in protective mode basically. So he wants them to know, no, Chloe is involved, which is evidence that they are involved. Karen Reed is innocent, and Chloe attacked the John O'Keefe inside the house. He wants to put John in the house.
Right. And I think that the defense is doing a good job of creating a distraction, because all they really need, I still don't believe it, but they are doing a good job of creating a distraction because they really just need one or two people to hold out. You really just need one person. So, I
One more thing, because I know you got to get to the video. What time are you closing out the live stream today? Because
I don't know.
okay,
My
oh,
family, I don't have a time. I mean, it's
okay,
40. Yeah, but I don't have a time because my man's still working and my
okay,
daughter actually needs to go to bed. But
okay.
yeah.
Um, to be fair,
Hmm.
to give some balance to our conversation, last thing I want to know, with the evidence that that has been presented in trial one, I'm not asking you if Karen Reed is innocent or guilty. That's not my question.
You can ask. I'm not going to answer.
Okay, right.
Uh-huh.
The theory of the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth's theory of what happened, is
Hmm.
that more plausible to you than the internet's theory or the defense's theory of what happened?
Internet has a lot of theories. So,
Basically, all the theories put John in the house. And there's just different things of what happened, but he definitely went inside the house. And that changes everything. Did That's really what we're trying to figure out. Did he even make it into the house? Because if he didn't make it into the house, something happened between him, Karen, and her Lexus SUV.
mm,
And then the other alternative is that he just intoxicated somehow. This is a very alternative that he
mhm.
somehow fell. No one did anything to him. Karen didn't hit him. The Bryant's, Higgins didn't do anything. Something happened with him being intoxicated and he fell and unfortunately hit his head. How does he end up where he ended up though? That's a real big problem. How does he end up where he is? Where he's laid out, where the evidence has shown where he was found several feet from the curb with, I mean, you say you don't have an issue with the shoe. I
Mm,
mean,
I don't have.
a
I don't
shoe
have.
doesn't just come off on its own. A hat doesn't come off on its own.
I don't have a real issue with a shoe, but
Okay,
even
forget that. Forget that then. Is it
if,
plausible? Is the Commonwealth's theory more plausible? Is it possible?
I mean, we're not done with the case. We're not done with the Commonwealth case.
Okay. I'm
So
going off the first trial. That's all.
yeah, it might be the problem with the first trial to me was more so the prosecutor. Um,
Mm,
I found I just could not follow Lolly or Lely or whatever his name is all the time.
yeah.
But again, it was very clear that the witnesses were not prepared. Okay, they did not even know what they were doing on the stand. But even though, and this is, I don't know if I came up with this today, but I did think about it today or sometime last week. Regardless of how brilliant Hank Brennan is, the problem is he is put in a position where he has to undo somebody else's work.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is this is not fair enough. Usually, when it comes to retrials, the prosecution retrials tend to favor the prosecution usually. Okay, but even that, Hank Brennan is placed in a position where he's not only tasked with proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt in this case, but he's placed in a position where he has to undo a lot of Lolly's mishaps. What I mean by that is if we, for instance, go back to let's just touch base on Carrie, what's her name again? Carrie Roberts
Yes.
and Jan McCabe. If we refer back to their grand jury testimonies, because that really, it formed the basis for attacks on their credibility when they testified, right? So
Yes.
Hank Brennan, again, not only that he has to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, but he has to undo a lot of Lolly's mishaps in his failure to prepare the witnesses. So he's in a pretty tough spot. And then we have Proctor. We cannot forget Proctor. We cannot forget Proctor.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty he's in a tough spot, but again we have to focus on how these witnesses testify this time around, because if we go back to Celebrate from, I believe it was yesterday, they can magically make things disappear, so we don't know what else these other witnesses are going to make disappear. So
Yeah, it's an uphill battle. And
yeah,
that's why many people feel like how even if she did do it, how can a jury convict her with all these problems?
yeah, it's a tough.
Yeah.
He's tasked with an almost impossible task, and I wondered, I tried to figure out why the Commonwealth decided to retry her so quickly. I just I question what exactly it is that they were thinking, because it, I don't know. To me, I believe it's too soon.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's too soon for a retrial. I think they probably did it too soon. If I was
Far
a
as the jury, for the
what's this?
jury, are you saying that because of a jury selection?
It's the jury selection. It's the press runs that we've seen over and over again. But it's also the memory of the witnesses, and then you have the problem with Proctor. So I probably, if I was a prosecutor, I probably would have given it a few more years. But then again, they probably do not want anybody to, pass away or anything. So that's probably why they decided to move. And now that I'm thinking about it, John O'Keefe's parents are much older. So maybe that's why they were pushing so quickly. I don't know. Somebody might be in poor health or something along those lines.
Mm.
But yeah.
Well, oh, and you know what? To that point, they know, what they're up against. The prosecution,
Oh,
they
no doubt.
know, and I think if it's in honor of his parents, I think at the end of the day, they want to show them that they at
Right.
least tried,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they went out and paid a special prosecutor to come in
Right.
and do it the best that he can, and they can have some peace about that they tried.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess beyond just, his parents, this guy was a part of law enforcement. So
Yeah,
obviously
Boston Cobb.
yeah, so probably there was a lot of push to retry this case again quickly. But I don't know. I personally would have waited. So I would have given it some time. So real thing, let me play this video. I quickly need to grab a charger. Okay, don't go anywhere. Benji, don't go anywhere. Let me grab a charger and then I'll be right back.
Just kind of right in the next room.
When you first pulled up, did you notice any vehicles in front of Brian Albert's house?
Yes, I did.
What vehicles did you notice? Vehicle or vehicles did you
Just
notice?
one.
What was that vehicle?
It was a Jeep.
Can you describe the Jeep for us, please?
I really can't. All I can say is that when I pulled down, the Jeep was on the parked on the street in front of the mailbox, and I turned into the driveway.
Okay. Did the Jeep have any special features on it that you remember, that you
No.
can describe?
Not that I can recall.
Big giant snowplow on the front?
Again, it was dark. I didn't really pay much detail to it, but beyond, I just asked, whose Jeep is that?
And did you learn whose Jeep that was?
I did, yes.
Whose Jeep was it?
It was Brian Higgins' Jeep.
And you said that it was parked in front of the mailbox, is that right?
Yes,
So as you're looking at the house, the mailbox would be closest to the driveway, is that right?
yes.
Rather than, for instance, the flagpole on the other side of the lawn.
Correct. So if the flagpole's here, there's the lawn, and then here's here's the mailbox, and then the driveway's over here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Okay.
Thank you for that. You've previously indicated that the back edge of that vehicle, Brian Higgins' Jeep, was at the side, basically, of the driveway, which is what you've just described. It would be blocking the mailbox, the rear end associated with the driveway entrance, correct?
Yes.
Have you ever discussed having seen that Jeep in that spot with anybody else in this case?
Is that including previous testimony or?
It is. At any time, before you testified at the previous hearing, had you discussed having seen that Jeep in that spot with anybody else? For instance, your husband? Objection. Was there any other car on that curb line, if you will, other than the Jeep when you pulled in?
Not that I remember.
And Brian Higgins, if it's his Jeep, he's in the house, that Jeep's not moving, correct? So it stayed where it was.
Yes.
All right, I'm back. Okay. Benji actually said okay. So I'm back. All right. I have a question. Okay. I have a question for you. So let's go with the theory where, nobody touched John O'Keefe. He just fell on the lawn, hit his head or whatever. And then, he eventually dies out there, right? Um, under that theory, how do the scratches end up on his arm? How does that happen? What's the internet saying?
Yeah, the Chloe when she was let out to use the bathroom.
So it's still Chloe,
It's
regardless.
it's still an animal, or if it's not Chloe, it's an animal.
Hmm.
Actually, the scratches is really, a big reason why people believe he made it into the house. Because it's like, even if we go with Karen did it, or he has some kind of unfortunate accident, we everybody goes back to, how did he get these scratches though? And what animal is out there in a blizzard scratching on a human in the snow? It's, you see what I mean? And like, they go back to, he must have went in the house. He didn't
And
have
then
to.
what happens in the house? How does it get the scratches in the house?
It's Chloe. Okay, so many of us have watched the video. I think this time, if I heard correctly, he may be called by the defense to testify this time. He is a dog trainer, an expert,
Hmm.
and he trains dogs on how to bite, police dogs, different type of dogs. And these doctors that, I know it didn't go well in the last trial, but there are doctors that deal with dog bites. They say John O'Keefe's arm is classic. They swear by their own decades of experience that this is from a dog. The canine teeth, the actual marks, the patterns, the behavior of dogs, particularly German shepherds. That is how a German shepherd dog, 7 years old, like, they go through the whole science behind it on, from their expertise. And that is a part of the internet's theory. Now they have a dog expert that have come on the internet who has done several videos right here on YouTube and explain the behavior of the dog, a German shepherd, why she would do that, and the pattern that they bite. And now that has convinced people even more. John went into that house, something happened. Chloe jumped in and was trying to get him off of somebody, or she just recognized him as the threat. He's a stranger. He has come to harm his owner or his family. Chloe, excuse me. Chloe,
Hmm.
German Shepherd, is thinking, John. John is a threat. John is a danger. John has come in. He's an intruder. He has come in and he has to be taken down. And Chloe grabs onto his arm and she's biting, she's clawing, she's scratching, trying to pull him off of someone else, or trying to stop him, intervene in between a fight that may have happened. That's the theory.
I don't know. I give less weight to experts generally because, again, I work with a lot of experts, and I just know that experts are paid witnesses, and for the most part, they're not impartial. They are prepared to testify whatever way lines their pocket. So to me, I don't know. I don't give a lot of weight. Again, I'm not part of the jury, but I definitely don't give a lot of weight to experts. I just no. I'm not. The experts do not convince me. Let me put it that way, because I've had to. I've deal with a lot of them, and again, most of them you can certainly get them to say or to opine one way or another,
Okay.
and I mean, we've seen it, excuse me, we've seen it with Dr. Wolf again, with him directing the defense on how they should cross examine him, how he's potentially going to answer and the like. So,
The-
and that is something that's done in practice. The difference here is that they got caught. I'll give you an example. As far as workers' compensation with work injuries, half the people we represent have no idea how the system. Half the people do not even know how to go about it. So even today, I talked to a client. There's an issue that came up in the case, and I tell the client exactly what it is that they have to tell their doctor. At the end of that phone call, I tell the client, do not say that your attorney told you to do this or ask this. So when the defense gets the record, it is going to be very clear that the client or the injured worker is acting at the direction of an attorney. But as long as the medical provider does not say her lawyer told her to do X, Y, and Z, they have no way of proving it. So to me, again, I am a little wary about accepting an expert's um, opinion as, the gospel, because experts go one way or another. They go whatever way. Um, their pockets get lined. And we'll just talk a little bit. Let's talk just a little bit about um, insurance, more so insurance companies, okay? Because that's really who my opponents mostly are. And obviously we're not trying to talk about Luigi Mangione here, but I keep saying that from a defense perspective, out of all these cases we've seen here, if I had to pick a case, Benji said it's interesting. So if I had to pick a case that I would voluntarily, I would pretty much, what is if Obed was here, she'd remind me of that Dr. Russell, because I think Dr. Russell basically, volunteered to be part of this Karen Reed case. If I had to pull a Dr. Russell and choose one case to be a part of, it would be that Luigi Mangione case. That case has a lot of potential. That case has a lot of potential. Again, and that's, just based on how people view insurance companies. So again, if we're talking about experts, and I don't know how it is in Chicago, I think it's probably going to be the same, because independent medical examiners, that's pretty much standard. And those are people, even when I worked for legal aid, when I was helping people get on, SSDI, Social Security, or whatever it was, we all had to use independent medical examiners. Um, and in the context of workers' compensation and even car crashes, insurance companies select specific experts. And the reason they select those specific experts is because there's an expectation that those experts will give them an opinion that will either reduce, not even reduce, minimize how much it is that they have to pay, in the sense that they're going to minimize a claimant or plaintiff's injuries. And even from what is this? From a plaintiff's perspective, when we select our experts, again, we try not to use the same expert over and over again, because if the case is in litigation, there's no question that the expert would be questioned about how much business we give them, right? But if we have a really complicated case, we know exactly which so-called independent expert to send the case to, because some experts allow you, or allow the attorneys to edit their expert reports. And the reason why that is because draft reports are not discoverable. So it's not something that opposing counsel could get their hands on. So that's what I'm saying. As far as experts go, I'm just wary, because we've edited expert reports before in order for the report to be in line with what we believe our clients' injuries are and the opinion that we want from the expert. And then again, there's some experts we just do not use because we've used them in the past, and either they will not allow you to edit their report, or they just are much more likely to minimize your client or the claimant's
Mhm.
injuries. And then again, because you have to learn who the experts are. There's something called I believe it's called psychogenic syndrome or something along those lines. So there's certain experts that think, or that not even think, they strongly believe that people's pain it's something that's in their mind and it's not real, not something that they can actually perceive. So why would you send your client to somebody that does not believe that pain is real if your whole case centers around pain? So I know, real thing. I have, not that I have serious doubts about experts. Where's what? That girl needs to be in bed. So there again, I just have deeper insight into how this cross between the medical legal world, not to say that I'm skeptical, but I am actually skeptical. But I also understand that you can pretty much get an expert to argue one way or another. Otherwise, you'd not hire them. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. But even you asked, how did he get those scratches? Of course, the defense is going to put on there. It makes sense that they would, yes, pay an expert to say what fits for their theory that, yeah, it was Chloe, it was a dog. But other than that, I mean, are we to believe the tail light, or somehow the SUV caused the scratches like that
that
from?
applies to the prosecution as well.
Okay, thank you.
Whoever they're calling that specific witness in order for that witness to testify um, in line with the prosecution's theory. So to me, it's really not coming down to the expert. I know some people have said this is going to be a battle of the experts. I think this is more so a case about credibility. This is how I would frame this case. It just comes down to who appears to be more trustworthy or even more believable. That's my sense of what this case is really about.
That makes sense.
So yeah. One thing about me, real thing, I I argue both sides. Like, you have to
Yes.
be prepared for that. I argue both sides. I don't have a clear side here. I don't have a clear side about whose theory is more accurate, but I am curious to. I think the real game changer here, okay, the real game changer here, apart from credibility, it's just going to come down to those interviews. I don't know why on earth Karen Reed was talking to all those people out there.
The
Why?
Karen Reed's interviews weighs more in your mind with the jury over the credibility of the eyewitnesses, in particular Carrie Roberts lying to the grand jury, Jen McCabe lying to the FBI.
I think so. Yeah. I think it adds a layer that did not exist in the first trial, and it definitely adds a layer that should not have existed, because over and over again, with it does not matter in which jurisdiction the trial is taking place, but the judge is always going to instruct the jurors that a criminal defendant has no obligation to take the stand. And just because they did not take the stand, no inference should be drawn from that. But every once in a while, with most trials, you're going to, and it's not even just from jurors, even spectators. Spectators want to hear from the defendant. I don't know if you watched the what was that trial again? Let me take a moment. Did you watch the ASAP Rocky trial?
I did most of
Okay.
it with you. I watch your replays.
Oh, shout out to the replay crew. But with that ASAP Rocky trial, a lot of people wanted to hear from ASAP Rocky, and that's always the case with almost every trial. People want to hear from the individual that is actually on trial. And in this case, they get to hear it from the horse's mouth. So Karen Reed is going to be scrutinized as much as everybody else that's taking that stand. People are going to, not even people, jurors are going to take a look at, what is this? Her demeanor, whether she's credible, whether she's contradicting herself, what she's contradicting herself about, and pretty much information that she has put out there. Um, Her own statements. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Whatever the statements are. So they're definitely going to consider that heavily. And I tried to make a, must have been, let me see, I have two notepads. I don't, it must have been sometime last week. Let me see if I can find those notes. But there was a trial. I don't believe that I covered that trial extensively, and I don't even think that I'd actually made a real return to YouTube. But the case out of Georgia, that what's the name of that woman?
I think that was from last year. That was one of your favorites, I think.
Yeah, what was the woman's name? I forgot, but I don't know, something recently. No, it's not Morris. It's not Melody Ferris. There we go.
Ferris.
So with the Melody Ferris trial, right? The thing that nailed Melody Ferris was really her text to her lover saying that he is in the burn pile. Was it in the text or was it a recorded one of those recorded jail calls? I don't remember. But in any event, information came out and it's a statement from her that, you know, her estranged husband was in the burn trial. In that case, though, a lot of people had difficulties reconciling their minds with the fact that this woman that is, you know, I don't want to say she's from an affluent family because the way that I followed the facts of the case, at least the way I remember the case, the facts of the case, they really came from nothing. And this man was able to, you know, what is this? He was able to build wealth for his family. So a lot of people had a hard time believing that a homemaker, somebody that's used to the finer things in life, would give all of that up by taking a husband out. And I think it's also, I think in that case, it was difficult for people to believe that a white woman, an affluent white woman, would actually take her husband out. And in that case, the defense tried to create a decoy and say that it was actually one of the sons that took the father out. In that case, as far as the investigation was concerned, I believe because GBI was involved in that case, and I believe that during the investigation, they found that the sons, he lived in like one of those, he was still part of the property. He lived on the property, but he did not share a home with his parents. And when law enforcement or GBI or whoever it is, when they investigated um, his house, I'm gonna call it a house because that's where he lived. When they investigated, they found that his house was mostly in disarray, with the exception of the bathtub. So according to, you know, the internet sleuths and detectives, they came up with a theory that, oh, why is his bathroom or the bathtub spotless? That's because he was washing off the evidence, and they had all types of theories. But in that was a good case. They had potential there. Defense had potential. But what really nailed Melody Ferris in that case, and the jurors, when they were interviewed afterwards, they said even though there were inconsistencies in the prosecution's case, because again, people are not going to testify in a linear way. There's always, it does not matter which trial it is, there's always going to be contradictions in their testimonies, especially if they gave prior statements or things along those lines. But in that case, the jurors pretty much said that even though the prosecution did not have a perfect case, and even though I believe the defense witnesses, I think the defense attorney had actually put on an expert in that case to show how, or to try to show how this woman could not have killed her husband. Um, in any event, the jurors said the one thing that they could not get over was the defendant's own words. So a defendant's own words can pretty much nail them. The with what is this? The no, we're done with Melody Ferris. What's her name again? Karen Reed. Again, I still do not see how the prosecutor gets over Proctor, because Proctor is a big deal. But I do think that not the prosecutor, the jurors are going to place a lot of emphasis um, Karen Reed's um, on Karen Reed's own words. I see that for sure.
If you're looking, when you see those videos that Brendan played,
Mm-hmm.
even from I guess the mind of a prosecutor and a defense attorney, I guess because I don't see it, you can interpret it as this is very damaging to the point that it could convince the jury to convict her. Enough. She said enough damaging words in those videos to the point that all the other crazy stuff that's going to come in, the evidence that's going to come in, will override her words, will override all of that.
I would not quite put it that way. And the reason again is because the case is still in its infancy. So far, what I've seen, the way that Hank Brennan is presenting this case, I would like to believe that it gets worse. I don't know that it does, but I think that's where we're likely heading. Not to say that we're going to see any type of statement where she says, "Oh, I backed into him and he's gone," or "I did this and that to him." But her contradictions are going to be, they're going to be, again, an added layer that the jury will have to consider. And to me, again, this is not so much a case about the experts. To me, it doesn't come down to the experts. It's really going to come down to credibility. That's what's going to come down to, and who's more believable. On the one hand, you have the prosecutor. The prosecutors really have the prosecutors have these Karen Reed statements. And in my mind, the way that I've characterized it as Karen Reed taking the stand in the prosecution's case. Whereas the defense, they have the gift, the gift that is Michael Proctor. So that, to me, that is the distinction right there. And again, we do have what, folks, the whole notion or concept of jury nullification. So the jurors might say that, the little cups that they were putting evidence into, and the bags, or the brown paper bags, or whatever it is that they were doing,
Crazy.
that might be so egregious to the it might be egregious enough for the jurors to pretty much disregard everything else. We just don't know how the rest of um, the prosecution's case will go. So that's where we are. And I mean, let's quickly address Callie's state. Did you want to say something? Oh,
No. Mm-mm.
okay. So Callie, she was pretty much saying that, the 9 to 9 is a good ratio. And Callie thinks that Karen Reed may have better luck if there are more men than women on the final jury, because at least if she's looking at it from that angle of potential jealousy. So if I understand that correctly, Callie's pretty much saying that Karen Reed is much more likely to be acquitted with more men on the jury than more women. What do you make of that? What do you make of the jury overall? Do you have any sense, or have you formed any opinions?
No, I think that's an amazing comment. That's why I asked you, is she a jury consultant? She needs to send this information to the
No,
defense,
no.
because if so, Alan Jackson, Yannetti needs to play up.
No,
Higgins
no
being
more
jealous.
nonsense. No more nonsense. Like I'm with Bev
Judge
Cordelia
Bev.
on this one.
They need to play up. Higgins was jealous. Albert is his friend. It happened all in his house, but things got out of hand. Chloe jumped in. John was an intruder. They got into the fight, and then they had to figure out what they were going to do next. They didn't have many options. They say, hey, let's put them on a lawn, let them figure it out. We'll clean it up. We
Crazy.
have connections. Brian Albert said he'll call in a favor with
Yeah.
the big guys, you know.
Yeah.
with those in charge, he'll call into it. They owe him some favors, and we'll get this all cleaned up, and no one will ever know.
Yeah, I mean that's one potential, but my focus is less on, you know, my focus as far as the jury is concerned has less to do with gender lines, and I'm more focused on the level of education and what these people actually do for a living. Um, because as we've seen in the first trial, I think if I remember correctly, the first trial had some pretty educated people, highly educated people. And because of that level of education, a lot of them, to me, at least this is based on the juror interview on Turtle Boy's channel, but based on their educational backgrounds, a lot of those jurors were more inclined to be forgiving of Michael Proctor's conduct than we otherwise would have seen in a place such as, I don't know, maybe a Chicago or in Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta. I was gonna say definitely.
Right, because here's the thing, a lot of people that have had negative experiences with law enforcement, it does not matter what the hell law enforcement has. Okay, they're toast. Okay, they're
Yeah.
toast. As soon as, not even talking about balloon knot and anything else, as soon as they started putting the evidence in things or in objects they did not belong, as soon as they decided against searching the Albert home, I think that would have been enough. But for people that, because I mean, this Canton place or whatever, it appears to be, it's apparently safe because apparently the Alberts, they leave their front door unlocked. If we are to believe Jen McCabe, where she just entered this home around 6 or 7 a.m. and the doors were unlocked. So I'm just more inclined to believe that people that do not have um, negative experiences with law enforcement, they are much more likely to, one, humanize them, and two, understand why they might make it's not really a mistake to me, it's more of a miscarriage of justice. But for somebody that is making an excuse for law enforcement, they're probably going to view it as, oh, it's just a mistake and anybody can, make that mistake, things along those lines. So
See,
go
no,
ahead.
no, please.
No, I was just going to say, to me, I was just repeating myself. So to me, I think it comes down to more so the level of education and what these people actually do for a living. And I suppose because this is it's kind of really a dog bite case if you want. Um, so I think it also depends on if these people are pet owners, right? If they have dogs, if they've ever owned German shepherds, if they know how this breed of dog behaves.
Mm-hmm.
So
And even
yeah.
if they unfortunately have sustained a dog bite
Right.
themselves or know someone personally that has, the Proctor is too big of a problem. There are
Yeah. There's no way around it.
several violations. It could be it would, let's say all he did was he didn't have proper evidence collection materials, and
Right.
all he did was the solo cups and the brown paper bag. And the problem is, okay, We know it was snow, it was a blizzard, so a lot of snow accumulated.
Mm-hmm.
First search, no tail light. Second search, no tail light. They seize her car from her father's house. They take it to the Sally port. Now on a random third search, now he finds 47 pieces of tail light.
Yeah, Proctor's problematic. And I think that's my one disappointment with today's cross examination. I wish that Jackson had spent more time highlighting Proctor. Because again, if I was defense in this case, and I've said that over and over again, I would make everything about Proctor. Even if even if you just sneezed, if Proctor
Mhm.
just sneezed in the witness's direction, that is what I'd make a big deal out of. So because again, this whole third party, to me, I don't think that the whole third party argument is good because it's a distraction that's not very clear, but Proctor is as clear as daylight.
I say the
So
third party can't really be proven.
yeah,
Is what is it called? Congestion or something. Like it's not. Yeah, I mean, will what's the final number? It's going to be 12.
yeah,
12. Okay. Will 12 people believe? Maybe, probably not. But Proctor is there. It's
yeah,
there. You have it all. You have, oh, well, the his friends in the group text says, well, the homeowner's gonna catch some shit. Like this happened on his property. Proctor
right,
texts his back immediately. Nope, he's a
yeah,
cop.
right,
You didn't look at nobody else. You zoned in on Karen Reed. You didn't consider possibility of anyone else just to even rule them out. You
yep,
never investigated the house itself. That would have did it. Nothing's in the house. They did a full forensic screening of the house. There's no evidence of John and being in the house.
hmm,
It's just all the things, and to find out, it could be coincidence, but everybody believes it happened in the basement. He now this people are not having their concrete basement pulled out every day. That's not an everyday regular common occurrence.
yeah,
He's had his whole concrete basement redone and the house sold quickly below the appraisal amount. That we know that means that person, that seller, is very motivated, that he's going to take a loss to sell the house. Chloe gone, quote unquote, rehomed.
right,
What? All in the span of several months after this incident. So there, he made sure if anything did happen, they were never even ruled out. And if something did happen, it's almost impossible to collect any evidence inside that house. I say what you will, the Alberts made sure of it.
yep,
So then you have him, unfortunately, disrespecting Karen, like so unnecessary. She's a suspect. She's the main suspect in his investigation, and he has
hmm,
all these nasty things to say. Um, I agree with you. Perhaps the defense, they wanna, I think Alan and all of them, the whole team, they want to present everything. They want to show, yes, these witnesses are not credible. Look, they are lying to a federal grand jury. They're lying to the FBI. They lie, uh, and come together and create timelines together and get their stories together. When you get back to the video, I don't know if you saw this. Jim McCabe had oh girl,
Carrie,
no, sorry, the other one. The brother Ryan Nagel had came to pick up his sister. Well, I want to call her Julie. There was a moment because he pulled up behind Karen, and he's the best witness actually, because he testified that he didn't see nothing different about her tail light. When he pulled up to pick up his sister, I'm getting to the point. The point is,
No, take your time.
no, um, in this whole interaction, soon after, uh, Karen arrives on the scene. Actually, they kind of pulled up together at the same time. Ryan Nagel, Karen, and John. When they get to the street, Ryan lets Karen turn on it first. So she pulls up to 34 Fairview before him. So he pulls up behind her. So he's able to get a clear view of her tail lights. He says, he wasn't really paying attention, but if it was out, it would have been noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, no, he came to pick up his sister who was attending the get together for the birthday boy, and he didn't see anything different or amiss or broken or no type of damage to any of the tail lights of the SUV that was in front of him. His sister comes out and says she's decided to stay, even though she asked him to come pick her up to give her a ride. No, she wants to stay. I guess she's having fun. There's other theories on why she wanted to stay, but I'm not going to go into that theory.
Now let me hear it. Let me hear it.
The theory is the commotion, the fight has already broken out by the time. That's very quickly. We know whatever, if John went in that house, whatever happened very quickly, according to his cell phone data and the steps taken. Then there's nothing else. I think what's the last thing is like 12:41 something. There's no more activity on his phone. The phone is very telling too, by the way. Like him locking his phone, that no, he ain't nobody, he's not getting hit by a car and reading text and locking his phone. Okay. But the theory is the commotion breaks out. Somebody tells her, no, she can't leave. Tell her brother to go. And she has to come back in to help them. That's the theory. So that's why she goes out and say, no, I'm going to stay. Everything's all right. I'm having fun. Never mind. And she tells her brother to leave, get out of there. She has to go back in the house and help them.
That is too attenuated for me.
I know. I don't think.
I like a good conspiracy, but that is just too attenuated for me. So yeah, I don't know. Benji, do you have questions? Is Benji still here? I don't know. But um again, I think as far as defense is concerned, maybe they switch it up as they carry on with cross-examination. But I'd like defense to weave Proctor in
More
more frequently.
more
Because
frequently. I agree with you. That would be very, very good. A good strategy.
right,
Put the attention on him, the lead investigator.
right, because I mean that's how they started off during the opening, but after that, he pretty much just disappeared. And we need Proctor to be a prominent figure. He has to be at the forefront of this whole thing because this is really his case. So yeah.
I get it. I think they the defense too, total speculation. This for Karen Reed to call Carrie
Hmm.
and Jen for help and to go through all of that and for them to turn against her. She feels like she's in battle with them. And that's why I feel like we got all this extra stuff too with Jen. Alan knows, he knows Jen was going to be. Did you hear his questions about being prepped, being coached?
Yeah.
I was like, see, he was listening to our live stream last night. And
Right.
he's anticipating so many things from
Right.
her too. So that's why Cross didn't go as well today. I think he was trying to always get ahead of her too.
Yeah. So that's what we need to do. Let's move on towards the very end because I thought again because I try to be fair and when I was listening to Cross again I did not think that Alan Jackson was being effective but I was checking myself in the sense of, do I think he's not being effective just because I have a bad taste in my mouth, because he's left a bad taste in my mouth? But you are confirming that Cross was not as effective as probably as you'd hoped. Is that what
Correct.
you're saying?
I
Okay.
am saying that. And
Okay.
I'm sure he feels that way as well himself.
Yeah. So again, from my perspective, I expected Cross to be chaotic. Like the very end of today's Cross is what I expected from the very beginning. Um, Alan Jackson kind of, again, in the big in the beginning he started off okay, and there were 2 points. I just did not have time to write them down, but there were at least two distinct points where he had that classic cross-examination style and he was in control. But it is very clear that Jan McCabe's preparation or over preparation started to frustrate him because he was not getting the responses that he wanted or hoped for. At least that was my sense of, the power dynamic between these two today.
Very true. And all of us were saying, just move on. It's not even worth it. Let it go. Let that point go. Let's move on. We have other big fish to fry. You have other points to make.
Right.
Let that go. Move on. Let it go. She's not gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
He didn't want to let it go.
But that girl got a new face. She got a fresh blowout and a new attitude. So she did her thing. So let's fast forward to the very end. I don't have a timestamp, but I know that it got very chippy. Okay, let me see if I can find it. I guess it might be because she's still on the stand here. Yeah, but it got pretty chippy towards. Let me see. Oh, here's something else I wrote. Okay, so this was around 3:45 p.m. So this supposed statement by Karen Reed. Oh, actually, before we move on, I have a question for you. Okay, just while we're trying to flesh this whole thing out. So let's for a second assume that something nefarious was taking place in the Albert home, okay? And there's no question that Jen McCabe was present at least most of the night before the blizzard actually took off, okay? My thing is this: if Jen McCabe was a part of this attack on John O'Keefe, or she was aware of the attack of John O'Keefe in the basement, then why would she accept an invitation to help find John O'Keefe? Wouldn't she, under those circumstances, wouldn't she be more inclined to decline the invitation and just stay home and distance herself? Is that something you've considered or thought about?
Absolutely. I said
Okay.
that today. I said I know she wish, like, ew, she would have just said, "Oh, girl, I'm sure he's fine, but I'll make some calls. We're staying in today because of the
Isn't that more
blizzard."
suspicious though?
No, she's. I believe she agreed to do it to appear. Oh, it's so much to it. Okay, it's a guise. It's under the guise that no, her and her family are not involved. Look, she even helped. I mean, even to the point of telling his niece that everything's going to be okay and she's going to find her uncle. That's a lot.
Okay.
That's a lot.
So how do we
So
make sense? Oh, you're not done.
th-
I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
no, no. The internet believes that she loves, and I mean, she admitted to it. She loves her family that much that she would go to these lengths to even talk to the victim's niece who has already gone through a lot of loss and say it's going to, even though she already knows what has happened, but it happened, it was an accident, and her family cannot go to prison over this. This is what they believe, that she's willing to go along because she didn't want it to appear that, oh, she declined to help Karen find him because look, she knew she was in it. The theory is it would have made her look more guilty, more what's the word? Like
Cahoots.
in cahoots with her family. That she knew what had happened. So of course she's not gonna go and help Karen find him. No, because she knows where he is and it's going to lead back to her family. So if
Okay.
she goes along with it, it will look like, look, I've been trying to help. She gets to say to Peggy, his mother, I was there. I was helping. Karen called me and I got up out the bed and helped her. And when we found John, she could say she called 911. She helped try to get him warm. She helped with any type of life-saving CPR. She gets to say, my family and I are the good guys. Don't believe them. Look, I helped.
Okay. So I just have more questions because I'd like to hear your perspective. So, because I only had one question, but I have like three questions lined up for you right now, real thing. So here's my other question. Actually, while I'm taking a look at my notes in today's testimony, okay, how do we reconcile Karen Reed's statement where she allegedly said to Jen McCabe that she left John O'Keefe at the waterfall? Because I don't think, unless I just do not remember the cross examination properly, but I do not believe that Alan Jackson challenged that.
I don't think so either. So is the question, why would she tell her no? Remember, you pulled up to my sister's house. Yeah. Jim McCabe reminded Karen, no, you didn't leave him at the waterfall. I saw you. You came to my sister's house. It was Jim McCabe that directed her back to 34 Fairview. Fairview. That is correct.
Right. So to me, the fact that if we are to accept it as the truth, as the gospel, Karen Reed trying to throw a decoy and telling Jan McCabe that she left him at the waterfall and then kind of getting caught and later on changing it to, oh, you know, coming up with another excuse. I just don't know how we distance or how the defense distance Karen Reed from her statement that she left this man at the waterfall. Because to me, that kind of shows signs of deception.
No, she was drunk. It shows how intoxicated she was. It's damaging.
I
It
don't
it
know that that is if we have to go with the notion that she was drunk and does not remember that they left the waterfall, then that to me that's even worse, because if you were drunk or somewhat incapacitated to a point where you don't recall driving to Fairview, then one could easily infer that, oh, you most likely then ran this guy over and don't remember. So that's what I'm having a hard time just reconciling in my mind. I don't know why. If she did in fact make this statement, I don't know why she'd make the statement unless she was trying to lie
I
or.
think she may have talked. I haven't seen all of her interviews. I
Mhm.
haven't watched all of them, but I may be pulling that from her directly, saying she couldn't remember. I do remember watching probably the first one, which was like 2020 or something, Dateline,
Yeah.
the one from last year. I remember, and I'll watch it again. I remember her saying like she couldn't remember, and I could read between the lines because she was drunk. Like she had, she's still trying to like, wait a minute. She's trying to, once she woke up in a panic, she's still intoxicated. We know that because
People
of
think
her.
she actually went to sleep. Is that
She
what
went
the
to sleep.
internet is
Yeah,
saying?
they believe she went to sleep for like an hour or so.
So why did Karen Reed go to sleep and the Albert stayed up?
Exactly.
What do you mean exactly?
Exactly. You're proving our point.
What do you mean I've proven your point?
Okay.
What point did I prove?
Karen goes back to John's house, cussing and fussing the whole way, right? She's calling them, she's cussing them out. Oh Lord. And how many voicemails? 50 something? She, but actually, at least there is a phone trail of her, going back to his house. She connects to his Wi-Fi at 12:36 a.m. She's at the house. She's upset and intoxicated. She's not in her right mind. And they already have had issues, we know. So I get it. I can understand it actually. I
That's probably
understand.
real thing. That might actually be worse for Karen Reed. And the reason I'm saying that is because let me think. Let me just try and think of a case. I'm trying to think of a case where, and I have a case at the tip of my tongue. I just cannot remember who the defendant was, but it's probably something that has happened in a number of cases where a criminal defendant, after disposing of the body, will go on to text and call the victim in this case to try and paint a certain picture. So to
Mhm.
me, I think it's actually worse for Karen Reed. I think those
Yeah,
facts make it worse for Karen Reed.
that has been explored, and other cases have been brought up, and those most of the cases show where the person is texting and sending love voicemails, expression of love. I love you so much, can't wait till you get home. I had such a great night tonight at the waterfall. Okay, see you later, John. Like, nah, they're like, no, let the jury be smart enough to know she wouldn't do that, and then call him 56 times, cussing him out, calling him a pervert and all these things. So it's
I'm
really
not sold.
the reverse. Like, wouldn't she try to play it up like, hey John, what time do you want me to come and pick you up? Where are you? What's going on? Are you having so much fun you can't answer my call me back? It's a blizzard. I know you're not going to stay there. Don't you want me to come and get you? I love you. Like, wouldn't she say more of that if she had
I
done
don't
what?
I don't think so necessarily. I don't think that it would either be lovey-dovey or rage-filled. But to me, it's the actual text of communicating with John O'Keefe. That is the focus. So I don't know. This is a very complex case. We need again, somebody needs to make a movie out of this.
Oh,
Like,
it's definitely going to be a movie for sure.
I don't want maybe I do want a Lifetime movie or a Tubi movie. I'm not sure. I'm
No, a
not
real
sure.
one. A
Oh,
real one. A real one for real.
oh, you
No,
don't
and
want Tubi?
uh, no, or 2B is not real. But I have a question for you. You can ask
Yeah.
your questions. You brought up Dr. Daniel Wolf again when you were talking about experts.
I'm gonna bring him up every time I bring up Proctor. Believe me.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait for you to please don't respond to me in email. I want to hear your response to my email and all that I sent you next week on a live stream,
Okay.
because I want
All
everybody
right.
to hear your point of view of this.
Okay.
Because you're really, really like serious about it. Like,
I
this
am.
is a problem. So here it is. I want to try to give Dr. Wolf some bail. I hear what you're saying about the conduct, and anybody can say, well, you got 100+ texts with the defense attorney. 100+ texts is not only about logistics and scheduling his testimony and blah blah blah. Okay, there's more that's being discussed, and that's the problem, right?
Okay. Is that the question?
No,
Oh,
I'm laying that down.
all
I'm
right.
laying it as a foundation. So, can we go back to how ARCA even got involved? My question to you is, and I'm sure you know, the Department of Justice, right? In their interest, their own personal independent interest to do their own investigation into this case, hired Arca
Right.
independently. I don't think anyone knew until their report was completed based on all their analysis. And then once the prosecution and defense equally were made aware that, hey, there's been some investigation testing done, that it just comes out that shows that, according to them, John O'Keefe could not sustain the injuries that he has from a motor vehicle. And so obviously that looks like, hey, that leans towards helping the defense. Why? My question is, why not give some credence to that their report, it completely independent. They have no dog in the fight, right? They have no reason to be biased from the start. Their report is what it was well before Dr. Wolf even gets to meeting Alan Jackson and doing whatever they were going to do. The report itself is impartial and it stands on its own. Where is the credit for that?
To me, right? Because if we go back to, they were, I'm going to use the word retained. He's probably not going to agree with that,
I'll
but
agree with that. I'll stipulate that. They
he's
were
so funny.
they were retained by defense.
Right. They were retained by defense. And here's my thing, right? If we go back to earlier on in this conversation, or at least this live, right? What time is it? Okay.
It's
Real thing,
almost 10 o'clock your time.
yeah,
Hmm.
real thing. I'm gonna give you another 11 minutes and then I need to go. Okay. I need to
Oh,
go iron. So
oh, yeah, sounds good.
okay. So if we go back, and I'm just, again, I like to cross reference, go back and forth to what is this, other cases that we have discussed. So if we have to go back to, I believe, the way that I started off with a live today, um I talked about my concern about Alan Jackson's conduct and the fact that he used to be a prosecutor once upon a time, right? So to me, I don't think that improper conduct or misconduct uh, comes out of nowhere. I think it is a pattern that has always existed. And I think with Alan Jackson, I've noticed that pattern on, there are three distinct instances in this Karen Reed case where I've identified that pattern, where he just, I guess somebody might say he colors outside the lines, right? So if we're gonna go back to Dr. Wolf, I do not, again, in my mind, they got caught. That does not mean that he's not done this before. And when I said we're referring back to older cases, is because I really have Adrian Love in my mind.
Hmm.
The way that we saw her present that YSL trial, again, if you have to look at the prior cases that she has handled, that is just, again, a demonstration of how she's always conducted herself.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Yes, I don't want to cut you off. I've been meaning to send you. There is an attorney on YouTube who has experience with her and told a story about her doing this, and it confirms what you're saying. I'll send it to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love gossips.
She
So
did it in a case. This attorney is a defense attorney in Fulton County.
yeah, please
So
send it to me.
she's like, yeah, Miss Love does this all the time. She did this with my client. The
Yeah,
exact same thing. There is a pattern. You're
I,
right.
I think there's always a pattern with people. And I mean, today, oh my goodness, the people I work with love to gossip. So today, it came out that, because I work for a solo practitioner, okay? What that means is that this law firm is owned by an individual attorney. They're the principal, and associate, and she has paralegals. Okay. So
Mhm.
before I was hired, like many years ago, she had another attorney working with her, but that attorney, I don't know, that relationship did not last. I don't even know that they worked together for 6 months. Okay. Um, it's come out that that attorney may have had an alcohol. It sounds like she was an alcoholic. Okay. I
Okay.
don't like to try and get into people's business, but there, I mean, I do actually try to get in people's business. I like to seem or appear like I'm not nosy when I really am. So, I mean, I asked enough questions to get the name of this attorney. This is when I first started out at this law firm. I looked her up, and at the time when I looked her up, she looked like, I think she was doing real estate or something along those lines. But I was curious enough, and every once in a while, I'd hear information about this attorney. So today, this principal attorney that I work for, she walked her dog out or whatever, and then she came back. And when she came back, the paralegal was really excited, and she was like, "Oh, you won't guess who got disbarred." Um, and then, the attorney was trying to guess or whatever. I don't know why the hell she said my name. And she's like, "No, I did not mean whatever my name is." Um, and she guessed the other attorney. And then she was, trying to apologize. She was like, "No, I did not mean SO." And her words were that SO is too ethical.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Mhm.
don't know why she'd use those words, but those were the words she used. She said, apparently, I'm too ethical because I don't color outside the lines. There have
Yeah.
been instances, okay? One very serious instance was probably a few weeks ago, where again, I've told you guys, we deal with experts all the time. So I know you have a little experience with workers' compensation because you know somebody that was on workers' compensation, but oftentimes, and it's not just workers' compensation, it's really in civil, even in criminal cases, there's something called an intervening cause, okay, or an act of God or whatever. There's certain things under workers' compensation, there's certain things that a claimant can do that will pretty much free the insurance company from liability. So in this case, this client was doing stuff he had absolutely no business doing. He did something that could potentially destroy his case. So as I was going through the medical records, I found the medical, this guy, I don't even know why he didn't tell me. Like, you're supposed to tell your lawyer everything. Anyways, so I come across a medical record. I recognized how problematic the medical record was. And the principal was freaking out because it's one of those cases where potentially you've worked for free and you get no money because based on the client's conduct, he pretty much did something he shouldn't have done, and his case could blow up his case. So I bring this medical record to the principal's attention. Okay, I tell her we have a problem here. Uh, I don't know that we fix this. I don't know how to fix this, but we have a problem. So this woman is out there trying to figure out ways to bury the record. I'm like, no, bitch, you don't bury the record. Like, you want to put your license on the line for one case. Why not even one case? Why are you doing this? I've said this over and over again. I understand zealous advocacy, but there are certain things that's not the responsibility of an attorney. So we're like, the record has to be disclosed. There's no way around it. You cannot hide the record. So a way around that is basically to get the medical expert to opine on it. By doing that, you get the medical expert to opine that he did this stupid thing that he should not have been doing, but this thing did not hurt him, or did not, you just phrase it in a
Mhm.
way where you can kind of still secure his benefits, in the hope that either the adjuster does not catch on, the defense attorney does not catch on, but you don't bury the record. You have to turn it over. So what I'm saying by that is, to me, once you have engaged in improper conduct, you no longer have any honor. So that's just the way that I take it. I don't care if you go on to save like a baby, I don't know, a little baby dragon. I don't know why you'd be saving dragons. I don't know. I don't care what it is that the professional goes on to do. Uh, to me, you're tainted in my eyes. You're tainted in my eyes to the point where I want to dig up all of your work and uncover what else you've been involved in. So
I
that
see. I
that's
see.
that's just how I roll. So
I
yeah.
see you're not really putting the issue on Dr. Wolf so much. I can understand it. And you've been consistent. You feel this way, you felt this way about Fonnie, you felt this way about Kayla, and now Alan Jackson is like, oh, exposing who he really is. My additional take on that is I picked, in my opinion, I picked up on this last year. He
Mhm.
seems to be more than professionally invested in this.
Yeah.
It's personal. It feels personal. Like Karen is
Yeah.
someone he really cares about, number one. And this is his Johnny Cochran moment.
Right.
This is his
Right.
Johnny Cochran case
Right.
for him. So hey, if you gotta play a little dirty, hey, Arca, look, let me tell you what you need to say and what you need to do. Cause we gotta pull all the stops out. Cause I gotta get a not guilty verdict for Karen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely beyond just being an attorney and zealously advocating. And we've talked about this before, where I've pretty much said that I think there has to be a line where an attorney does not personally get involved, not just with clients, but even with witnesses, with, jurors, even with judges. I think there has to be a line drawn. And I probably have this perspective because when I was a prosecutor, in a jurisdiction where prosecutors were not even allowed. Like our uh the head of the prosecutors department did not want to see prosecutors hanging out with judges, did not want to see prosecutors hanging out with public defenders or defense attorney. Basically, she did not want anything that could be perceived as, you know, improper conduct, even the appearance of impropriety. She did not want that. So maybe it's based on their background, where I think there has to be a line drawn always. Like if you need friends, go befriend, I don't know, your kindergarten friends, or I don't know, pick up a hobby or something. But there has to be, because here's the thing, an attorney that is emotionally invested in a case is much more likely to skate the lines and engage in improper conduct. That's just from personal observation. Because if you do have a personal stake in the case, you're likely to do. It's not even about the prosecution proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt anymore. It's more so about you taking on the responsibility to try and get an acquittal at all costs. And I don't know that that is the role of a defense attorney. So that's just that's my 2 cents.
Okay. It's 10 o'clock on the dot for you.
Okay, let me do a recap though. I'll give a closing. I'll give a oh, that's why Alexa's talking to me. Let me give in I'm gonna give a closing. All right. So based on the notes that I have here, again, we're not going to talk about the clip because I think that comes in on Friday. But it was very clear that Jan McCabe was prepared for the cross examination. Okay. She was closed off, but just, I don't want to say she really had a wall up. She was evasive in some respects. She also answered questions, but she answered questions in a way to suit whatever her mission was. Okay, to not, I guess her mission was really to not appear to be a liar. And then the defense really wanted to focus on the influence or between Jan McCabe and Carrie Roberts. I do not know that they've accomplished that mission. I think they probably may have accomplished it more with Carrie Roberts. But I'm not sure if they accomplished that with Jan McCabe, because at least as far as that aspect of cross, she was pretty much forthcoming. And then the defense tried basically to paint Karen Reed as the outsider. She's not family. And that's why Jan McCabe was more prepared to testify in a manner that was inconsistent with, I guess, the defense case. And then I'm trying to see here. I know because I have ice cream truck. I'm sorry. I wrote it down here because I believe that Jan McCabe was trying to talk about, because apparently I think that's the analogy she was trying to draw, where they were giving each other heads up. And she's like, oh, it's similar to, growing up in a neighborhood and seeing an ice cream truck and basically, I guess, making an announcement to all your neighbors that there's an ice cream truck around.
She tried it. She
yeah.
definitely tried it.
So, okay. And then around 11:54, I said she was caught in a lie. I don't exactly remember what that lie was. And then I had disappeared because I had my CLE. I said Jackson has turned it down. Oh, okay. What I mean by Jackson has turned it down is because there are moments here and there where Jackson would get very loud, where he really had no control over the witness. But then I suppose around 2:09, sometime around 2 p.m., he had pretty much mellowed down, but towards the very end of the cross, he had lost complete control of the witness, and I just don't know what he was doing at that point. And then, okay, I wrote to myself, I'm like, Jan may have hired a lawyer or a husband must have prepared her. And here's the other thing about Jan McCabe. When Jan McCabe was testifying today, again, her demeanor she had a much softer approach. And I believe Jackson did ask her about this, where he asked her if she had viewed her prior testimony in order to prepare for her cross-examination today. Because I guess to me, it sounds like Alan Jackson was actually impressed with how put together she was. So one thing I noticed about Jan McCabe today is that she apologized a lot. She would apologize. She would thank the judge. She would, I don't know if it's the judge, but I think she would thank Alan Jackson, and she would smile a lot more. Do you have anything to add?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And it's very intentional.
Right. Oh, without a doubt. There's no question about that. So she'd smile. And then I think on 2 or 3 occasions, she actually did crack. I don't know. She cracked about something. Something tickled her. Okay. And then based on the prosecution, though, they wanted her to hammer on poor visibility. Okay. Basically to explain why she did not see John O'Keefe's body when she left that residence. And, the defense, or Alan Jackson and Jan McCabe, they kind of tussled or grappled a little bit with, the whiteout conditions. But let's see. And then I think the prosecution also wants it to be clear. This is through Carrie Roberts' testimony as well. They want it to be very clear that it is Karen Reed who noticed John O'Keefe's body, even when that body was not visible to anybody else. So that was also very clear from Jan McCabe's testimony. And then obviously the grand jury testimony was very problematic for what's her name again? I'm going blank. For Jan McCabe. And then I pretty much just made a note for myself that the witnesses this time around are definitely well prepped. And again, when it comes to that ASAP Rocky trial, if we have to go back there, we've talked about the difference that prepped witnesses can have, or the impact they can have on a criminal case. And then, okay, I made a statement for myself where pretty much, it's a statement, the Karen Reed statement, where apparently she says that she left him at the waterfall and then she changed her mind. And then let's see if we can find this last timestamp. But it's pretty much a part where the judge is telling Alan Jackson that he has to let Jen McCabe finish her answer. And here's the other thing with Alan Jackson, and I've said over and over again that my favorite defense attorney in this case is definitely Alessi, because I like his style. He maintains control of the witness. Alan Jackson's presentation could potentially be very problematic for. It could be very problematic for the defense as far as the jury is concerned, because jurors tend to not like attorneys that are boisterous, attorneys that could even be perceived as rude, and Alan Jackson is a lot of that. So the only way that I see defense getting away with this again is if the jury is not necessarily impartial, and not that it would be an acquittal or a conviction one way or another, but generally jurors do take it out on the attorneys and whoever it is that they're representing, be it the state or the criminal defendant, when attorneys are just present in the manner that Alan Jackson is presenting right now. But we'll see how that goes. Let me see if I can find this last bit though. Let me see if I can.
John's whereabouts, correct?
What's the question?
Again,
John's whereabouts. That when Good at the time, when he asked about those first phone calls, that when Miss Reed called you, she was inquiring about John's whereabouts. An argument or a fight to Sean Good?
Objection.
Good.
Objection.
Sustained. Do you have no memory at all about what you talked to Sergeant Good about?
Okay, so this was the.
But you did tell at least one officer about the initial phone call that you received indicating that John may be missing, correct?
I possibly said I got a phone call and that's why I'm here. We all came out to look for him. I apologize for not remembering specifics.
Did you tell any officer at the scene anything about an argument or fighting that Miss Reed said occurred on that first couple of phones? Telling any?
Many different conversations.
I'm just trying
Everything
to
was
get the very end.
Ms. McCabe, do you understand my question? Did you understand the last question I asked you?
If I spoke to an officer, Mulaney,
Correct.
it was a chaotic scene. I just found my friend on the ground.
So the answer is, I don't remember.
I
Correct?
don't remember speaking to him. No, sorry.
She's sorry. She's apologizing. Again, my timeline is off, but I think
Later that morning,
57.
you did have a conversation with Officer Lank that you actually do remember, correct?
Yes, correct.
What you told, correct? You never met.
These phone calls, who am I speaking
The
to at this
initial
point?
phone calls that you had with Miss Reed,
Yes.
you never,
I don't think that I'm going to
don't
find it.
clear light of day, you had a chance to take a beat and a breath and see. And you know what your answer was? You do, because you just read it.
I wasn't asked what she was said at
What
the
was the
scene.
answer to that question?
I'm objecting.
The objection sustained. Ask one more clear questions to Jackson.
I think
What was the answer you gave in answer to the question about what was said by Miss Reed to the EMT, the female EMT at the scene? What did you say she said?
I don't know if I was asked specifically what she said to a female EMT.
All right, we're going to end this now.
Your Honor, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
I can't end it like this. You said
Okay,
she
jurors,
said-
ignore the comments of.
Okay, so when Alan Jackson's saying that he cannot end it like this, I don't know if he's surrendering, if he's saying that, Cross went differently than he thought. I don't know what did you make of that?
I actually didn't see that. I didn't see the end, but yeah, I just now I feel like, yeah, he knows he's not in control, but it's now the end of the day and it did not go the way he had planned and prepared and expected it to. And so it's like, no way can we end this day. This cannot be the last thing the jury hears. Can't end it like this.
Yeah. Okay. So apparently the internet wanted the Leslie to cross-examine Jen McCabe. Yeah. I really like Leslie's approach. Again, he's going to be a win when it comes to Dr. Wolf, because obviously that's his witness unless something happened out of the ordinary. So for Dr. Wolf, I expect the direct and cross to go similar to what we saw in voir dire. And under those circumstances, the jurors are not going to like Hank Brennan's presentation because he's definitely going to be aggressive. So the one saving grace for that will be the fact that they have a Leslie to try and rehabilitate that witness. But let's get
Counsel, ask one question, Mr. Jackson.
You said that she said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him in the presence of the female EMT? That's what you testified to under oath at the grand jury, isn't it?
Yes, because she also said that.
All right, so folks.
All right. So that was the end. The end of that cross was just, I don't know, it was chaotic. It was really chaotic.
Yeah. My closing argument is that I hope Alan Jackson actually watches this cross-examination, especially tomorrow. I know he's busy,
Yeah.
but come in Friday with a different approach, take his emotions out of it, and stick to what's most important.
And what's that? What's most important to you?
He can continue to show her credibility issues. If there's more lies that were told, he wants to paint her as the person that's always coordinating the storyline, the timeline. Okay. And Proctor, her interactions, encounters with him. And what he did show today is every time she needed to be interviewed, she calls Brian Albert, her brother-in-law, but she didn't call him that morning at all. She never called him. Now she did
went into the house. Didn't she go into the house?
After the fact, after, the ambulance had left. But she didn't call or go in the house immediately. That's the internet's issue. He never came out, and she never went to say, hey, come out and help us. John is out here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So tomorrow there's no court, so I definitely won't be live. Friday I won't be up here. The way we can get around that, I just don't want to put too many things on my plate. So I'm oh shoot. Oh my goodness. I thought I could watch court all day Friday. I'm not going to be able to do that because I'm going on a date. So I'm leaving work early on Friday. So I'm going to watch what I can in the morning, and then I'll try and catch up on Sunday, and then we can briefly talk about it on Monday. So the next time I'm up here again is Monday, but I'm definitely going to spend my weekend watching the videos that you sent me. I'm going to make notes because you don't want to hear from me. You want me to put it in video. So that's what we'll do.
Okay. I won't take your time.
Okay, so you have a fantastic weekend. My co-counsel will reconvene up here on we'll reconvene up here on Monday. Monday we're gonna do regular time, so we'll stick to 8. I'm just gonna say about, because even today I had to change the time a little bit because I had to cook or whatever. So I'll say around 8 to 8:30, but I'll schedule it in advance. And my hope this weekend is to get some short clips out, because I really want to focus more on just other court cases and headlines overall. A lot has been happening. A lot has been happening in the legal world. What, 51 jurisdiction, maybe more if you decide to, uh, break down the federal courts. But a lot, like today, I believe a lawsuit came out in Louisiana. Was that? No, let me think. Is it Louisiana? I read two things today. There was something out of Louisiana, something out of California, where a lawsuit was settled because um, juveniles were being really violated by the folks that were are supposed to be. I don't even know that you protect somebody while they incar. It's a weird. I have problems with incarceration, but we're gonna move on. So there's just a lot of interesting developments. Even with a Starbucks, somebody got millions of dollars because Starbucks, I guess it's a repeat of McDonald's, where they prepared a really hot beverage. The patron ended up suffering serious injuries and they got awarded a whole bunch of money. So, yeah, hopefully I come out with, more clips and stuff, and then I get to grow this channel. Listen, if you guys wake up on Sunday and you see no clips, consider the fact that I actually tried. In my mind, I tried, but I just had other things going on. So that's that. That's my closing. Anything else, real thing?
Nothing. Shout out to everybody.
Shout out to
Allie and Benji,
Yep.
Jerome Shrees,
Yep.
what's his name? Fiva,
Diva.
Callie, Obag,
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, everybody.
Yeah, shout out to everybody. And big shout out to Real Thing for holding me down, okay? Big
Thank
shout out
you.
to you. Because no, I really do enjoy these conversations as opposed to, you guys know I can ramble and I can talk. But I think we get more out of an actual discussion than just me rambling on and on and on and talking about ethics and being disappointed in Brennan. So no, not in Brennan. What's his name?
Alan.
Right, in Alan. I'm so disappointed in that man. But let me go, girl. Let me go. I need to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy your day. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.